Well, hello everyone out there in the wonderful world of Twitch. This is John, one of the people here at Rook and Rasp that runs the channel. And today we are playing Seriously, Let's Play. It is our show for community building, introducing games, and bringing people from all over the wonderful world of tabletop gaming together, from Twitch streamers to just average gamers, to creators of every kind, just to say, hey, let's all meet up, have a good time, play some games. So today we have, I think, a really cool opportunity in a game that I'm excited to have. I'm also excited to have our special guest. But today we have Michael from the RPG Academy. So, Michael, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so ridiculously thrilled to be here. My name is Michael. I'm the host of the RPG Academy podcast. We primarily do podcasty stuff, but we do some streaming, some other things as well. And we're going to be playing a game that I'm designing that I hope at some point in time will be available for people to support in some crowdfunding campaign. Don't know when or where yet, but it's all about bad movies and D12 dice, two of my big loves in role-playing games. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm kind of really excited because D12 systems, I haven't played a lot of. I also have not played a lot of GM-less systems. So I'm looking forward to that. But right now, I mean, the other D12 system that has come out was the Coyote and Crow just came out, and they're a D12 system. So we're going to see a lot of that, I think, really catching on here pretty soon.
It's a
Um,
very underutilized polyhedral, and it's so much fun to roll. I could talk about it forever. It's a fun die to roll.
it is, and every side is a pentagram. Just joking. Uh, all right, well, going around. Next up in our order, I'm going to go ahead and say, please, Danielle, introduce yourself.
Danielle. You'll see me here on Serious Let's Play. I am also on the One-Legged GM YouTube channel, part of the Restore Corps, where I play WD42. That's my Twitter handle. Looking forward to this.
Awesome. Thank you very much for joining us for this show today, and really glad to have you back. Going around the circle, you all already know me, so I'm just going to skip over me in the order that you see on the screen, and we're going to drop down and say hello to Asu. So, Asu, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Asu, short for Asu Shunamir. I've also been around here on Rook and Rasp and had a great time, almost a 10-year tabletop RPG veteran in one way or another. And yeah, you can see me on twitch.tv/Mulporgnir. It's very difficult to say, it's harder to spell. Uh,
And I'm gonna go ahead and mention that you're actually starting up within a month. You are going to be running our Shadowrun game, the Emerald City Knights.
Yes, I wanted to mention that, but I wasn't sure if that was hush hush right now or
Ooh,
not. No.
Dude, we got less than a month away. Let's tell everybody. It's all good.
breaking news.
Yeah.
All right. So that said, going to continue on to Monica. Thank you for coming back, Monica.
Thank you so much for having me back. I have had so much fun getting to come onto a couple of your Seriously Let's Plays. This is always the highlight. I love these. They're so much fun.
Thank you very much, Monica. And you actually are on a new show too, correct?
I am every Thursday night at approximately 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific. You can find me playing on Captain Robert's channel here on Twitch, twitch.tv/ Captain Robert. We have just started the brand new Critical Role Call of the Netherdeep campaign. It's going to be different. Robert definitely puts his amazing flair on everything that he does, and I'm so excited being a huge critter to be able to get to be a part of this.
Yeah. And for those of you who have not, first and foremost, of course, like and subscribe to us and follow us here on Twitch, but go check out Captain Robert's channel. He is a very dynamic storyteller. He has a wonderful time, and if you are a fan of metal music being played with with your RPGs, he is that kind of DM. So definitely highly recommend going and checking that out. But
Yeah, his live scoring is ridiculous to these games.
yeah, absolutely. But without further ado, before we get too far along, really quick, next week our channel shows do come back. We have our Horror on the Orient Express using Pulp Cthulhu tomorrow. On Monday, we actually have just finished our Star Trek Adventures show. But Tuesday, we are back with Seven Seas for By Leaps and Bounties. And finally, on Thursday, we will be back again with Growing Shadows, our Ninja Crusade 2nd Edition playthrough. But that's not why y'all are here today. We're here to, seriously, let's play a game. So, Michael, if you'd like to go ahead and introduce us with it.
Yeah, thank you. So this is a game called Action 12 Cinema, and it's sort of a throwback to, like, I guess when I was younger, like WGN was a channel I had, and that's where all like the good bad movies would play on the weekends and the afternoons. It also highlights the D12, which is my personal favorite polyhedral. I do think it is objectively the best die to roll. So it kind of meshes together my loves of movies, RPGs, and the D12. It's a GM-less system, so I'm going to be here today just sort of helping the four of you navigate the rules because you don't really know them yet, but you will be playing the game basically the four of you. The first thing we want to do when we start out is we're going to set some ground rules. So by default, the movie we're going to be kind of telling the story of is a PG-13. So that comes with it some of our safety tools. That includes that there will be violence in the movie, but not graphic violence. Sorry, my computer's doing weird things here. There will be no scenes of like torture. There might be some language, but not sexualized language. So not, you can use certain words, but not in relation to what they might actually mean. And there will be some innuendo towards sex, but there'll be no graphic sex. Also, the dog will live. If there is a dog, it has to live because it's PG-13. In addition to that, we want to set some ground rules for lines and veils. So in addition to just being a PG-13 game, so a line for me is like sexual assault. There's no need for that to be in the game. It just won't happen. A veil for me would be consensual sex. So if one of our characters needs to seduce someone to like get into a hidden area or to get a key card, totally fine. The camera's just not going to linger on it. They're going to walk into a room, door will get shut, and then the door opens or we move on to the next scene type of a thing. So I want to go around the room, make sure everyone else is comfortable with that. And if anybody would like to add their own personal lines or veils. So just let me know if there's anything that doesn't make sense or that you would like to add right now so we're all on the same page.
Yeah, please, Asu.
Oh, I guess for me, just my only other line is harm to children. Just none of that. And other than, I know this is being a little flippant, but with veils, unless the weapon has a clip, do not call magazines clips.
I will try my best.
Okay.
And then just to clarify on the children thing, because that does come up. Obviously, if we're in a game where the entire world is in jeopardy, that's one thing. But there will never be like an individual child in danger. Is that to clarify what you mean?
Yeah, you aren't going to see a kid get hit by a human.
Perfect. I'm perfectly okay with that. Just make sure we're all on the same page. And then sort of our last safety tool is the X card. Most of you are probably familiar, but there might be something that we didn't set a line or veil for, but while we get into a scene, now I'm uncomfortable. If we were playing in person, we'd have a physical card, but since we can't, just give me sort of an X sign, timeout, even just walk away from camera if you need to. That scene is over, no questions asked, we just move on. All right, so is everybody good so far?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. All right, so the first real decision we're going to make here is the genre of our movie. So again, everything uses pretty much D12s. So anyone who would like to start, roll me a D12 and I will let you know what genre we have chosen. And all the charts and stuff are just guidelines. They're not restrictive. So if we don't like what we've rolled, we can just choose something else. We do have one option to do a mashup. So if we want a sci-fi Western, we can do that as well. But unless someone just has one in their mind they really want to play, I'd like to roll in the chart. So who would like to roll first? I said first, but you know what I meant.
Yeah. I'll go first if that's all right.
Fantastic.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. That is 2.
2. That is a creature feature.
Ooh.
So we're still kind of going into the action version of that type of movie, but I'll see if I can find.
Sort of like Pulp Cthulhu.
Yeah, that would be a good sort of touchstone for it. Some of the others that like humanoids from the deep, them, piranha would be another thing. So we basically have some sort of humanoid or creature that is coming up from a other place, other time, other dimension, and is affecting us. It could probably use like a small town dealing with the threat. But again, we can define the movie however we want when we get into it. So starting with the creature feature, fantastic. All right, so next we're going to figure out who is behind all of this. And this, the big bad evil person. So I need 2 d12. So either 2 people can roll 1 each, or if one person just wants to roll 2, I just need 2 different numbers between 1 and 12.
I'll roll 2.
Perfect.
Good Lord, yeah.
2 and 12.
2 and 12. Makes sense. All right. So our big bad evil person is actually a thing. It's robots. So we can try to make this make sense however we need to, but at the end of the day, robots are behind our creature feature. All right. So next, we got to figure out what the plot of our movie is. This also requires 2 d12 rolls.
You want to go, Monica?
Sure. I tend to lose the plot, so that seems fitting. That is 11 and 12.
11 and 12.
We're using up all our good rolls.
I'm like, what's the crit? What's the fail?
Right. So on my handy dandy chart, that is table's choice. So essentially, we can make up any one we want, or if you'd like to re-roll just on that particular chart, you could just give me one more d12 roll.
For the plot?
Yep.
What do y'all think? Do y'all want to? Does anybody have an idea, or do we want to go ahead and roll?
I kind of have the idea of so it's like a mole man. The mole men are coming up, and we, the last bastion of humanity, are trying to fight against the mole people.
People are robots?
Yeah, they're led by a mecha mole person.
A mecha
I
mole.
love that.
Yes. They call him Mega Mecha Mole.
Mega mole. Triple M threat.
My dog, of course, chose this time to start barking like mad. So if I'm muting myself indiscriminately, I'm trying to get that out there. But I love that as long as everyone at the table is fine with it. Let's absolutely go with Mecha Mole Man.
I'm down for it. Absolutely.
I'm here for it.
And don't worry about the dog. We are an animal-friendly channel. My dogs interrupt stuff all the time.
Excellent. All right. So the movie is going to flow in sort of a general 3-act structure. So we're going to have an Act 1 scene where we have an obstacle we have to overcome, and then Act 2 we'll have 2 different obstacles that run somewhat either at the same time, or they will build off of each other. And then in Act 3 we will have 3, but 2 of those come in at a lesser cost, which means they're a little bit easier to deal with, and they're sort of like what would keep us from getting to the final showdown. But we're going to go ahead and roll for all 6 of them now, and then we will decide the order. So this is one of the parts we can kind of see what the outline of our movie is going to be, and then we can place them in what we think makes the most sense. The movie may not make sense because that's the type of movie we're playing. It doesn't have to make sense, but as much sense as it possibly can. So I need 6 different rolls of 2d12. So anybody would like to go, I'll let you know what we get. And I'll be taking notes myself, but feel free to take your own notes if you would like, so we can keep this straight, because I might forget. And I also may not be able to read my handwriting, one of the curses of my life. All right.
Well,
so
why don't we all just roll one set, because I'll get 4 of them.
Yeah.
That'll be fine.
All right.
I've got a 6 and a 4.
All right, a 6 and a 4. So one of our obstacles is collect all the pieces. And all of these by design are very sort of broad and generic, so that can look like however we want or need it to. But you can probably think of some examples in media, movies, where we've got to get 2 or 3 or 4 different things to put together a device or to get entrance to a place. but we'll make it fit however we need to. All right, who had the second one?
I rolled it. Were we just supposed to roll 1 dice?
2.
2. All right, let me roll a second one, because that first one was a 1, and the second one was a 3.
Okay, so that's just what we call fight. So there's going to be some sort of fight between us and probably the mole people. But again, it can look like however we want it to. It could be maybe civilians are being attacked and we just have to intervene. Our characters, or I should say your characters, could be physically engaged in the fight. We can make it look like however we need it to. All right, who's got another set for me?
That'll be me with 1 and 10.
1 and 10. Pirates. So of course.
Of course.
My favorite.
And again, we can make this make sense however we need to. It could be actual pirates. In one of the games we played, it turned out the mascots of the football team were the pirates. So we involved the football team in that. It could be the Pittsburgh Pirates. We want to go that way. But again, however we want to include pirates, we have the opportunity. All right, need another one?
I have 2 and 11.
2 and 11. This is magical / technological defenses. So this is something that's barring our entry. Maybe our mole people have personal force shields, could be related to the robots. Maybe they have like an exoskeleton. Maybe it's little actual moles in like people-sized robots. We can figure that out when we get there.
That's beautiful.
All right, I still need 2 more sets. Feel free, whoever wants to roll.
Asa, have you gone yet? Have you rolled your 2 yet?
Oh, okay. I did, but I can roll.
You need 6. So I need 2 more for.
Oh,
whoever
okay.
wants to
My
go.
bad.
I got 6 and 12.
6 and 12. So that is table's choice from this current list. So I'll just quickly run down the list. Anything that sticks out. Oh, apparently I'm making crackling noises. My apologies. Okay, so on this list we have gravitational anomaly, overwhelming paranoia, fight, collect all the pieces, something or someone must be found, the weather is out of control, fight, again, because that one comes up a lot, biological contamination, everyone is looking for you, normal mode of travel is now unsafe, and something is unstable. So of those, does any sound like something we'd like to add into our movie plot?
Stable really would fall into moles.
I have the
Yes.
weirdest thing that
Oh,
popped into
wow.
my head when this whole mecha mole came up is they were trying to come up because they have an affinity for Twinkies and were trying to get into that factory. So biological contamination, something got put into the Twinkies to bring the mole men up from the team.
Yes.
I don't
And
know
we
why
have
my
to
brain went
find the
there.
cure.
We have
Yeah.
to find the cure and fight them. That's literally where my brain went. That's why I was so excited to play in this today, because I was like, we can just be ridiculous.
Yes, that absolutely works for me as long as no one objects. That we will lock that one in, and then we need 1 more set of rolls.
If y'all don't mind, I rolled a 4 and a 10.
All right, that is pirates again. So we could again roll a different one, or we can choose one, or if anyone just again wants to make up absolutely your own, whatever you would like to do.
Somebody want to roll again?
Oh, sure.
I mean, because
Uh,
we got pirates once. Let's get everything in there we can.
Yeah, exactly, right? Just keep it coming.
I got 5 and 8.
All right, that is biological contamination again.
Do you want to do the unstable ground that we did before?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they're
Alright.
coming up, they're causing...
Yeah, they're causing
cause
tectonic.
problems.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's what
Alright.
that could be what alerts people. Sinkholes start popping up around the city because they've destabilized.
Well, that and
So again, we can put these in the order we want, but I agree that makes a great Act 1. That's how we are alerted to the problem. These sinkholes start coming up. Maybe the mall starts to collapse. It could be highways are collapsing. Cars are going into ravines, all that kind of good stuff. So we can just set that in stone now, or we can lay out all 6. whatever. Does anybody have any ideas? Again, trying to build in your head how we see the movie progressing, knowing what our Act 3 final showdown will include 3 of these. What do you think?
I definitely love the idea of. I kind of like it both ways. So there's sinkholes and there's like big mountain ranges just shooting up out of the ground, because that dirt's got to go somewhere.
Yep.
True.
Great
Yeah.
point.
So as everything's like sinking in and exploding up, we're all just like, what's going on? And so the whole first act is just trying not to fall in a hole or get shot up into the air.
And civilians.
Yeah, and save as many people and places as we can. The
So,
Taj Mahal.
do we want the whole thing to end up at the Twinkie factory?
I would like
Probably
that.
makes sense.
Make our last
The
stand
end is
at
definitely
the
going to be a big
hostess
fight at
stand.
the Twinkie factory.
Yeah, and the Twinkie factory becomes like our big home base fortress.
It is the
Or
last
maybe there's a
bastion
time
of
skip and it's a
society.
couple years later.
We've got to collect all the pieces. Maybe there's some sort of device that we need to defeat their device. And
Yeah, the pirates actually have come up with this like mole, like how you can use the EMP device to blitz electricity. It just stops moles in their tracks, and we have to assemble the pieces to create this super weapon that can help us stop them, humanely stop them.
but
Okay.
their version works on sharks.
Yeah, so we have to make a change to recalibrate to moles rather
We
than
have to get it
sharks.
from the pirates, and then we have to readjust.
They're also 17th century pirates, and when anybody asks why, it's because we had the costumes and we couldn't afford like modern. We can't afford modern pirate costumes. We also had the set left over.
Yep. Set was left over. The costumes were there. I mean, it's a very Matrix. That other movie I can't think of right now that probably don't talk about.
I think so.
I want to watch this movie.
Is
That's
it Dark
all I have.
City? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. So we got Act 1. Our first act is Unstable Ground. For Act 3, it looks like we're probably going to go with Fight. That's where we're going to have our big fight showdown with the Mecha Mole Man. Act 2, probably collect all the pieces and pirates. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So that leaves biological contamination and the magical or technological defenses also in Act 3. And I think all of that makes perfect sense, at least as much as this movie.
It'll make
Yeah.
sense by the end.
It'll make a lot of sense. Well, also because the biological could also fit in Act 1 too, because if that's what triggers these events, because the moles are starting to come up for the Twinkies, they're starting to migrate north. We just haven't encountered them en masse yet.
I like the idea of leaving the biological contamination for Act 3. So all we know starting out is they really like Twinkies. They're just going, they're eating all the Twinkies, and we don't know why. And Act 3 is when we go down and we see, oh, they've got labs. Look at all these labs. They're synthesizing the Twinkies. Why?
The convenience stores are what's going into the holes.
Well, and with the biological
Yes.
contamination,
Good.
You just
I was going to say the biological contamination may be that their plan is to change people into moles. And so they realize that infecting the Twinkies is what's going to get humanity wiped out.
Or
how about we
they're
really
trying
do
to
the-
Lot of
change
guile on your
humanity
face.
into Twinkies.
Ooh.
That's what I was going with. Is the humans are being turned into Twinkies?
That
I
works
still-
too.
I like the-
We're going killer clowns from outer space at that point, but hey, it's all good.
Well, I mean, like, because you know how people are super into like, oh, my blood type. Like, if you're O positive, you become a Twinkie. If you're like A or B, you become a mole. So depending on how your body reacts to that biological contaminant, you become a human or a mole or a Twinkie.
A human, a mole, or a Twinkie. I love that. I love that those are the options.
Humanity's last hope. O negative.
That's the name of our leading man, O negative.
Name. Oh, negative.
Named that for completely unrelated reason.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, I think we have a pretty good roadmap of where we're going. Again, we have the flexibility to change as things happen in the game. If we need to fill things in, we absolutely can. Now, apparently, I'm still making some kind of weird popping noise. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to fix that. My microphone is actually here, so I think I might just be hitting the desk I'm on. But I'm doing my best to quiet that. So my apologies.
I think it actually is
If you zip up.
your zipper right here near your neck is rubbing the piece of plastic on your
Your
line into
headset.
your ear. I think that's where it's rubbing. And
Well,
that's what
because
they're
this shouldn't be picking anything up. This microphone should be what I'm talking into, unless I've got some settings wrong. Because if so, then I'm using the wrong microphone, which is a completely different problem.
might
So
be,
if
but
you don't mind, give me 1 second.
Yeah,
Because
no
if I'm
worries.
using that, that's a big issue. Okay, how about this?
Sounds good to me.
Does that sound
Yeah.
any different, any better?
Yeah, move around a moment. Up.
You guys still hear me?
Yeah,
Yep.
we hear you. Do you hear us?
Yeah,
We can hear
us?
you. His internet just cut out for a second, I think.
Yeah. Oh. I'm sorry. Again, I'm not used to using this, and I think I might be using the wrong. Like this shouldn't be picking me up. It should be this.
Yeah.
But I'm not
It
sure.
sounds good now. Can you hear us though?
I can hear you. I think I had accidentally switched my like what I'm hearing, not what I'm talking to. But yeah. So if I'm using this microphone now, that should be better. I'm still confused. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, you're fine.
Honestly, Discord has just been completely screwy. I had a call the other night, and Discord would only do push to talk. That was it.
I've had some weird troubles with it before. That's the first time I've heard of that one though.
Yeah, and I tried to use the webcam microphone. I tried to use this microphone. I tried to use the headset micro. It was so. I don't know what's wrong with Discord right now.
Yeah. Again, I'm just apologies. I don't know what's going on. So it looks like if I turn to I'm using the mic I want to use, I can't hear you anymore. I don't know why. So I'm just going to do my best to stop that. So please continue to yell at me, and I will do my best.
No worries. All right. So we have our roadmap. We got ideas. Where are we going now?
So next thing we want to do is we're going to create 2 locations for our movie. The location where the movie starts and the location where the movie ends. And I kind of think we've already done that, but we're just going to solidify here. So I think the Twinkie Factory is definitely where our movie is aimed towards. That's going to be our Act 3 finale showdown. Act 1, we can do a centralized location, so we're all at maybe a mall, or we could all literally just be at a specific gas station. But anywhere that makes sense for our characters to start the movie together. Now, we haven't even created our characters. We do that later. So it could be that we are just a group of heroes that are thrown together by happenstance, or we could already be a group that knows each other. We'll figure that out later. But do we want to anybody have an idea for the first act opening scene location?
So I'm thinking if we're hanging out at a convenience store, we've got to be like college age or something like that. Getting our slushies, you know, maybe it's 7-Eleven. We're getting our free ones, you know.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, yeah. Convenience store.
All right, absolutely. And then once the game starts, we can absolutely create new locations as need be, but we want to know where we're going to start, and we need to know what we're aiming towards. All right. And now it's time to create some extras, some NPCs. So each of you will create one other character that will be in our movie, potentially. Sometimes they don't actually come into the story, but we're going to create them. And these are not our heroes, but these might be the people who are in danger that spur our heroes on. So it could be a loved one, a spouse, a child, parent, could be a rival, it could be a work colleague, just someone, you know, it could be like the conspiracy podcaster who's secretly been talking about the mole men for years, but no one ever listened to them. So everybody's basically going to create one NPC. Really all we need is a name and kind of a brief description so that we can have an idea of who they would be. Since there's no GM, if these characters ever come into the story, one of you will take over that role and role play them. Once you've kind of assumed that role, you will keep that NPC for the rest of the game. If they come in again, we'll just assume that you'll be the character or the player that picks them up. if we find ourselves in a situation where we have one player playing multiple parts, if you think that's fun to do, go for it. If you think it would be more fun to bring more people in, you can high five and say, okay, you're now this person, just to try to keep as many people in the scene as possible. But for the most part, if you claim somebody, they're yours. And you don't ever have to claim your own character. So this, it's kind of a group activity. Everybody can kind of talk openly if they have any ideas. So we don't necessarily have too many of the same type of characters. But does anyone have someone to start? Do they have an idea for who might be a fun character to add into our story?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking of Dr. Gerald Tannenbaum from Kentucky. He's been studying the mole people for a couple of years now, but he didn't really know the extent of their civilization. But he's also the only one who's been studying them because nobody else. It's mole people. What are you talking about?
I mean, it makes sense. There's a lot of coal mining happened in the early days of Kentucky, so maybe there was like an issue where like they ran into them, but it got buried by the government or something. So he's the only one that knows about it, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theorist.
Definitely a Randy Quaid kind of character, or you think it's something else?
I was thinking more of like from Dracula, the vampire hunter guy.
Oh, okay. So
Van
Helsing.
Helsing.
Helsing?
Yeah, like if Van Helsing wasn't cool. So this is your kind of stereotypical, especially of like the 80s action movie, white coat always, big thick glasses. Hello, yes, my name is Dr. Gerald Tannenbaum. How are you? Sort of like that.
Nice.
Yeah, I love it.
Uh, Who else has got something in their mind on that?
I was thinking at some point we need like a favorite college professor, bioscience or something like that. Deal with our biocontamination, people turning into things.
All right, so a professor of some sort?
Yeah, I'm terrible at names.
What about Professor Jurgen?
Ooh.
Jurgen.
Yes.
He's everyone's favorite because he's a little eccentric, but
Yes.
well, he's the biochem professor, so.
And we definitely need the name to also kind of allude towards their job or their role. So I'm recommending first name Gene.
Yes,
Jurgen.
Gene Jurgen. He's the one who figures out that your fate is decided by your blood type in regards to the contamination.
Love it. Love it.
I'm kind of we've got a lot of NPCs that are coming in that are kind of really brainy, but I think we need some dumb brawn, and we need to also have our at this place where we're starting more than likely we have the kind of a young man, high school, strong, works there at the convenience store. And pretty much just, he's going to be the one that we have to explain everything to. Because you got to have that foil that you're like, oh, this is what's going on. And he's like, he's just like, I don't know. Why is this happening? It's the Shia LaBeouf Transformers-esque character,
It's sort of the audience surrogate.
Exactly.
He's got to be like some sort of straight cliche name like Chad, something.
I was thinking Tad Chaddington.
That sounds more someone who's wearing the sweater around there. It should be
Working at the
rowing
convenience
team.
store because he was a disappointment to his parents, living up to the family name.
Okay, now I like it.
Hence the very regal kind of sounding name.
He didn't get that
Legacy?
state championship winning football goal, and that's why he works at the 7-Eleven now.
He does
He
great
may
at
have done
wrestling.
legacy,
His
but he
parents
still
wanted
didn't
him
get to go
more.
to the Yale.
Has a little character depth because he writes poetry and he has his journal behind the register. So that when he's not working, he's writing.
Yeah, love it.
Love it.
Love it.
At the end, as we're looking at the smoldering ruins of the mole people's civilization, he says something like, kind of fake deep, like, I see the monsters were inside of us all along. No, they just were in our planet, I guess.
Yeah, this movie is actually the retelling of his autobiography because he chronicled what happened to the town.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
Nice. So the Moon Crow in chat suggests a female corporate person in red pumps who denies what's going on but secretly knows something vital, as a suggestion.
Ooh.
The head of the Twinkie company.
Yes. Darla Twinkman.
Well, okay, so one thing I just got to suggest, there's a really good chance our movie would not get corporate sponsorship. So do we want to come up with a slightly different, like Twonkies or
Twinkies?
something so that we can't get sued for infringement?
Yeah.
Yellow custard cakes.
Or this color, shorten it, custard cakes.
Custard cakes.
Yeah, custard cakes. That works for me.
CC's.
Yeah, that's their street name, CC's.
Yes.
Yes.
I think someone has got to know someone who works for the hostess company. This has to be a thing now. Be like, look, we've created this beautiful thing for you, sponsorship.
Do they even technically
So we need
exist
a different.
anymore?
We need a slightly different name for her then. So.
Google.
Well, I mean, her name could be CC.
Ooh, I
might
do
be a
like
little
that.
too
Someone
on there.
suggested Chunkies.
Instead of Twinkies, Chunkies.
I wouldn't describe a Twinkie as chunky.
But that's the idea. It's the irony.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just
okay.
joking.
I'm all the way down for that.
All right. I did like the Darla. I did like that though.
Yeah, love the name Darla.
Oh,
What?
come on! She's a big corporate name. She has to have her last name can still be CC, but something. 2 last names that are C with an apostrophe in the middle.
Darla Claremont.
But it's gonna be like Chapman Claremont or something like that.
Ooh, yeah,
Christian
hyphenated.
Carl.
Hyphenated,
Claremont
yeah.
Chapman, I think would sound good.
And you have to say the whole thing with her name. She will not stand for one or the other.
Oh, people call her CC, but never to her face.
Yes.
Exactly.
I like to think her first scene, she shows up and one of her like goons is there and they're like, hey Cece, and she's like, how dare you? You're fired. Get out of my face.
I'll just say I apologize if I disappear or loud. It just apparently started storming outside.
Oh,
That was not expected.
Well, this is the type of
Understood.
movie that if you disappear suddenly, it's just a loophole. Like the writers forgot about your character and you just left for a little while.
we don't even CGI you in. We just film you somewhere else and then like glue the film to the reels.
Oh, actually, yeah, that reminded me. That's one thing we were supposed to cover and I forgot. The era of when is our movie taking place? Is it contemporary 2020 area? Do we want to do this was this a 1950s black and white movie? It can just be contemporary, but if anyone wants to make it differently, we can throw that in.
I say contemporary-ish, like early 90s, so that we don't have like 1,000 cell phones and able to research things easily.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Late 80s into 90s.
Yeah, you're using chat boards to get your message and talk to other people. You can't just Google things. You got to go on your what was it? Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like
Listservs.
88, 89.
We send up an email to the college listserv,
Yeah, the Usenet, the college Usenet.
Excellent. All right. So I think now we're ready to move on. And now it's time to create your characters. These are going to be the heroes of the story. So again, I apologize again to the audience. I don't have digital assets for this game yet. It's not quite there. So I sent pictures of what the character sheets currently look like. So they have copies. But we're going to kind of go over what you'll need for your character. First thing is a name, though you can fill that in later. It doesn't have to be done now. A description. The description can be things like, how tall they are, but it could also be like a woman on a mission, or a man at a time, almost like fate high concept sort of things. Just anything that helps you visualize and sort of internalize who this character is in this story. Now we're playing a bad movie, so they probably shouldn't be too deep. So like 2D cardboard characters fit perfectly, but as long as you're happy with it, I'm happy with it. The main stats of the game, you have 4 attributes: brains, brawn, charm, and moxie. Brains is basically how smart you are for like solving riddles, puzzles, knowing things. Brawn is physical strength. Charm is like social graces, emotional IQ. Moxie is sort of like grits, determination. Could also be luck, and it can also be anything that is not brains, brawn, or charm. So we played a superhero game once, and we just said that your Moxie score was like your superhero power score. So if you were going to use your superpower, whatever it was, it defaulted to Moxie. You have 4 values: 0, 1, 1, and 2. And you will assign those to those 4 attributes. So +2 skill or +2 attribute is what you are known for, you're best at. So if you have +2 brawn, you're very strong. If you have 0 brawn, you're average strength. These are action movie heroes, so even at their worst, they're still pretty good. And again, you can talk to each other about this if anyone has an idea, like I want to be the brainy person, or I want to be the person that should not be involved in this story, but I'm going to somehow get by on luck alone, so that we don't necessarily overlap too much, but it really doesn't matter, as you'll see when we start to play the game. But does anyone have any thoughts on their assigned scores for their character?
If y'all don't mind me kicking off, so I'm thinking, my concept, I was like, jean jacket bad boy with a heart and a headband. So yes. But I was going to go with brawn is what I'm known for, so that's going to be my 2, and then charm and moxie, with my brains being my worst. Having trouble coming up with a name for it though, but that's where I was going. Did y'all? I'm gonna say it. Did anybody here see Explorers? That old movie.
I love Explorers. It's one of my favorite movies.
The friend that like saves him when he's getting beaten up.
Yeah.
I don't remember the character's
River
name.
Phoenix? No, he was Wolfgang. I don't remember his name either. Yeah, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know, I'll take, out of honor of that movie, I will take Wolfgang as my character's name.
Yes.
Love it.
And go
Anybody
see
else have any
Explorers,
suggestions?
everybody.
It's so good.
I've got kind of my concept. Sort of the bad kid from town, not so much like in trouble all the time, but like petty theft. They're the one who kind of knows everybody. If you need someone to get you something, they're the one who knows how to do it. They're also the one who knows how to get those things that you shouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
But they're incredibly stupid. They're just head empty. Like 80% of the time, their plan works just because it happens to work, and the other half of the time, it works because they're able to convince everybody around them that it should work, and everybody else does all the work. So that's brain 0, brawn 1, charm 2, moxie 1.
Works for me.
Speaking of the reluctant best friend character who gets dragged everywhere, always. Obviously, since we have 2 characters with no brains, it'll probably be more what I'm going for. Probably, did you say Moxie is?
It's again like luck, like luck, determination, grit, guts.
Give 1 in Moxie for dumb luck, basically. Because the best friend always seems to, avoid getting truly injured in any situation, even though they really should have.
Yeah, absolutely.
And brawn is definitely my lowest. So, whose best friend do you want to be? Do one of you
Why
think?
not?
Okay, I'll be your best friend.
Excellent.
Somebody's got to keep me out of trouble.
All right, and I think that just leaves Monica, right?
That it does. So, okay, so that means you're putting your 2 in brains?
If you want to do brains, then I'll move mine to Moxie.
No, I was asking because you didn't say where you were putting your
Yeah.
numbers.
Brains is 2, Brawn is 0, Charm and Moxie 1.
Okay. So then I was thinking kind of that tomboy girl. I mean, literally, I'm just gonna like take my childhood and put this in here. But definitely not afraid to take risks. Always up for adventure. So Moxie 2, Brains and Charm 1. Not strong, but definitely kind of clever enough to figure things out. Not a fighter. So kind of not the best friend, but the person who's friends with anyone. You can just always slot in. If you need a replaceable person, it's that one.
Fantastic. All right. So after that, we need to come up with some skills. So you'll have a place on your character sheet for 5 different skills, 2 of which are rated at +2. So these are the things that you're best at, and then 3 that are rated at +1. You don't have to come up with any right now, but generally I suggest that you come up with your 2 +2 skills, and then the others you leave open for gameplay, because it's kind of a trope in action movies that someone happens to know a skill that they need them to know at that exact moment. Like, I didn't know you knew know how to skydive. Oh, actually, yeah, I spent a summer, and they just throw away line. That's how they get a plus there. Usually I try to do at least one that's very broadly applicable, like fighting. And then it just can be like, that could be fist fights, it could be weapons, it could be like word fighting, like arguing, debating. You can really apply it however broadly you want. Or you can do like weirdly specific skills, because then it's kind of fun to try to figure out how you can manipulate a scene so that your skill actually comes into play. So whatever you think would be the most fun, go for.
Okay. I have my 2 +2s already.
Sure. What you got?
Persuasion and lying.
Love it.
Nice. I know I'm definitely going to do fighting. I figure I'm going to be the kind of... I'm going to be your toughie in the background. And I think I'm also going to go for throwing. Like, maybe I wanted to do football at one point. I was a quarterback of some sort. But I know that can go for a lot of different things. So that's going to be what I'll do.
Okay. It could be in your backstory, maybe you were the best quarterback, but you got passed over because you're not the more popular. Your parents didn't have the influence of the school, so that's a little chip on your shoulder.
Got in a fight with the second string quarterback because he was picking on somebody.
So in all these movies, the best friend always seems to be the one who shows up with the backup, the information they need, something like that. So I was thinking prepared is my thing. I have the backpack with the science book and the first aid kit, that type of thing.
Absolutely.
And trying to think of a second skill.
Again, you don't have to come up with it now. You can totally wait till you need one and then make it up in the moment. That is absolutely fine.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how. So I have one, which for the tomboy whose name is Tawny Downs, I think climbing would be really good with Moxie, but then I don't know how to kind of put like going first. So like taking charge, being the leader, like she's not afraid to go first. So that way no one else potentially gets hurt. I don't know how to word that as a skill.
I mean, you just pick leadership.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. Then you can kind of apply it to really anywhere you need to.
If you wanted to go really broad, you could even call it just altruism.
See, I was going to say, I was strangely suggest bullheaded, because then you could also use it in fighting circumstances.
Ooh, yeah, bullheaded.
Plus, that's just a word you don't hear that much these days.
Oh my! I get
Well,
called
not
that
in
all the time.
90s.
Same.
All right. Does everybody have their two, or are they otherwise ready to move on?
Yes.
All right. So we're getting pretty close to the end here. So just to kind of lay it out, well, once we get all this completed, we'll probably take a break there, and then we'll come back and actually, get into the game itself. So the next thing on your character sheet, you should have a place for some relationships. I think there's 4 spaces, but we start with 2. So each of your characters wants to create a relationship to one of the NPCs that we've already created, and it does not have to be the one that you created. And these can be positive or negative relationships. So someone you like as a best friend, or you have a rivalry with, whatever the case may be. It could be a history. You used to be lovers, now you're rivals. You used to be interested in the same person, and that caused conflict. However you want. And then one of them should be to one of the other characters, main characters that each of you is playing. And these do not have to be reciprocal. So, if you want your character to have a connection to someone else, they don't automatically have to come back to you. They could move it around however they want to make sense. When it comes to the game, you're going to leverage these relationships for the potential of getting an additional die into your dice pool. And the way that works is it can either be like an emotional driver. So again, I don't want to let my daughter down again, so I'm going to make her recital. So while you're fighting the mole people, you can get a +1, even though your daughter clearly, well, more than likely isn't actually in the scene with you. Or it could be that, your best friend is in the scene with you, so you're both fighting the mole men together, so then you get a +1. That's basically how they're going to work. As the game goes on, you'll have an opportunity to either add new relationships or change them. So at the end of Act 1, there's like a little section where we update some things if you want to change or add a relationship. But to start with, you just need the 2. So do anybody have an idea for either one of theirs they'd want to start with first?
I know that because of how I've done my backstory so far, I'm gonna have Tad Chattington as one of them, because it's the fight that happened between us is why he's working at the gas station and I'm no longer the lead quarterback.
Love that. That's great.
I do have a relationship that she previously broke into the custard cake factory and got caught.
Ooh.
Out of curiosity, since I need one for somebody else, Danielle, do you have a character name for your character yet?
Thinking Drew Norton.
Drew? I think I'm going to go ahead, and since you're kind of my reluctant best friend,
I've known you for too long. I've given it.
I'm wondering which one of us has a vehicle, and make that kind of part of it. Like if you have the vehicle, I'm with you, or other way around or something.
I mean,
Because that's
maybe
high
I
school
have the
when
vehicle
you could
because
drive. You were the one that everybody wanted to be around.
Yeah.
I have a vehicle, not a good vehicle, but yours got taken away when you got off the football team.
There we
Because
go.
your parents
All right.
had given you a cool one and then they took it away.
See, I commonly call you up and I'm like, hey, do you want to go here? That kind of thing. Is that okay, or what are your thoughts?
You wouldn't have been invited to the party, but because you have the car, you have to go to the party.
I'm good with that. I just literally end up going to everything because somebody drags them.
Because no one else could afford a car.
Yeah.
Except for frickin' Tad working.
But he's always working to pay for that car.
But he doesn't give me rides anymore.
Oh.
Monica, what was your character's name?
Tawny, Tawny, last name Downs. Tawny Downs.
Tony Downs. Would you mind if you were my connection? I like the idea that it's the tomboy and, for lack of a better word, the drug dealer.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, we're starting at a convenience store. My brain went instantly to Jane Silent Bob. I was like, so are we there because we've already bought drugs and we need snacks? Like,
Yeah, I'm the J and you're the Silent Bob.
yeah, I'm here for it.
Yes.
And
I'm
what's
also
your
here.
character's name?
Their name is Mira Smith. In the credits, their name is actually Komarov, but because it's the 80s, they're like, let's make that a little more of a
John, what was your character's name?
I am Wolfgang.
No last name?
No last name.
No.
I'm that cool.
We're Drew and Wolfgang.
Awesome. All right. Do we have all the relationships?
Yes,
So,
for my NPC relationship, I was gonna take Darla and have it be sort of she's like my mother or my aunt, something like that, and I'm sort of the screw up niece or daughter who's just always getting into, again, little petty trouble, and she's like, how are you gonna run the corporate business of CC's if you're in jail all the time? And I'm like, whatever, Mom, my friends think I'm cool.
And that's
There
all
you
that
go.
matters.
And reinforcing our friendship, I broke into the Twinkie factory to get back at your mean aunt.
Yes.
You'd be the TA for Professor Gene Yeager.
I'm sorry, the custard cake factory or
You're
Chunky.
great.
I'm just gonna call it Chunkies. My brain will go to
Chunkies.
Chunkies. I'm chunky. It makes it easier.
it's a nickname for it, or Chunkies.
Yeah, because it makes sense if none of us know the conspiracy theorists, but we can have a link to the other 3 NPCs.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So there's only a couple things left on your character sheet. One is a space for a personal crisis, because that's another common trope in action movies, that there's something going on in our hero's life that somehow coincides with what they're dealing with, and at the end of the movie, they will hopefully have resolved both of them. So this can be as meaningful or as petty as you like, but it's something going on in your life that might be worked out. Maybe it's confidence in yourself. So again, Wolfgang maybe makes a perfect throw at some point to save someone's life and reignites your passion for football. It can literally be whatever you want it to be. So again, and this is also something we can come up with later if it works for you. You also have a place for a heroic trait and your Achilles heel. So these are things that kind of separate you, and this is why you're the heroes of the story. So some examples of a heroic trait might be brave or selfless, determined, a protector, kind, honest, optimistic, too dumb to know better is one I like to go with a lot. And then your Achilles heel is the thing that gets you into trouble. And sometimes those can be the same exact thing. So being too dumb to know better can also be your Achilles heel, or being overprotective, reckless, overconfident. And these are mechanics in the game that if you roll a dice pool, which we're getting to that very quickly, and you don't like your results, you can tick off one of your heroic trait uses, and then you can re-roll. Normally, you cannot re-roll ones. Ones are really bad. You're stuck with ones, but you can re-roll the other dice if you want to. If you use 2 instances of your heroic trait, you can re-roll ones. But then you would only have 2 for the entire game because you've only got 1 left, so you can't use 2 more uses, so you just limit your ability to use it. Your Achilles heel, you decide to use that before you roll, and you get 2 additional dice to your dice pool. Normally, you cannot have more than 5 no matter what. If you use your Achilles heel, you can get up to 7. That's the most you will ever roll at any time, period. Nothing can change that. 7's the max. But if you do that, if you roll ones, they count as double setbacks. So it's a very high risk, high reward. You can also put them together. So you roll 7 dice, use both of your heroic traits to re-roll those ones. That is totally fine, but you're blowing through a lot of your mechanics to adjust your rolls. So that's, again, up to you. So again, I'll give everybody a few minutes. Feel free to talk about these, ask the table for feedback, but we need a personal crisis, a heroic trait, and an Achilles heel.
I've already got all 3 of mine figured out. If
Love it. Well, what is it?
So, my heroic trait is Thief with a Heart of Gold, which is more of the trope than how it actually is. My character isn't necessarily a thief exactly, but most of the time they're kind of looking out for number one or number two and three, but like nobody else. After their inner circle, nobody else except that one time. There's that little puppy on the street that they're like, you're so. I'm gonna nurse you back to health, even though it's a great, like difficulty to me. That's what I'm gonna do. Which is also one of their Achilles heels, but I also loved my original idea for the Achilles heel, which was local off-brand soda. So anytime there is a chance to acquire local off-brand soda, uh, they will take it to the detriment of almost everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And the personal crisis, I originally had a goofier one. This one's a little more serious, which is have to kick my rap sheet to get into college. So all throughout they're looking for any little thing. Can I make my judge or my PO think I'm a cooler person if I do this or grab that? That's their personal crisis.
So let me since it makes sense, I'll tell you now how that would actually work in mechanics, because this makes sense. So for any dice roll, once per act, you can choose to just remove one die. And if you get any successes in that roll, or you get a total net success, because they cancel each other out. So if you roll a bunch of ones and a bunch of 12s, you may end up with nothing. But if you overall get a successful roll, then you can allocate towards your personal crisis. So one in each act. If you get all three, you succeed. So you could just say in your act that your parole officer is someone in danger. So when you do a thing, that helps them see you as a better person. So feel free to throw in people who see you doing heroic things. All you do is take a die out of your pool before you roll, and that's how you actually would solve that. So for whatever the personal crisis is, you just choose to not add one die you normally would be able to. If that still equals a successful roll, you click it off. One per act, you get all three at the end of the movie, you've solved it.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, anybody else have theirs they would like to cover?
I know that for my personal crisis, it's I'm definitely going for trope standard. Doesn't believe in themselves. I need that. I need Mr. T on the sidelines telling me to beat a ball and throw myself. But for my the negative trait, bleeding heart. Always getting into trouble for anything that any cause, whatever, just constant bleeding heart. But I was actually wondering if for the heroic trait, this is kind of weird, but I was wondering, does popular actually work?
Yeah. This is the kind of game where everything makes sense. So if you think it makes sense, it makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that, maybe somebody's like, you can do it, or something like that. It's like comes up or something like that. So because
Or it could
everybody
even
knows.
be in your mind, if you fail here, you might become less popular. So that's what spurs you to success, is the failure of no longer being popular.
Cool. A lot to think over.
So I'm thinking mine are kind of going to all be together too, in kind of a self-sacrificing as a heroic trait, because they're always going to put other people ahead of what they want to do, which goes into their Achilles heel, which is they're a doormat. I get the feeling you just Wolfgang just wrapped his arm around me and said we're friends now. And I just went, okay. But I think because of all that, my personal crisis is I'm failing some classes.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm not doing what I usually do. Mm-hmm. I've been being dragged everywhere.
I can see that happening.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think that leaves Monica.
Yeah, so personal crisis. That one I'm kind of, my gut instinct was to be like, oh no, they're friends with Mira, but they have a crush on Mira and they're coming to terms that like when you wind up falling for your friend and you're like, oh no, this could ruin everything. But I was like,
100% for
one,
that.
that also needs consent. Two, I don't know if that works or if it's just like if it would even come up. The heroic trait, I was thinking protector, because I really liked that idea, especially being like the tomboy and like being super headstrong and stuff. But for the Achilles heel, being reckless, so not knowing when to stop.
Yep.
And that becomes a detriment.
That's perfect.
Yeah,
And-
that's awesome.
Yep.
I like it.
All right, and I
I
think
feel
at
like
the
we're making a tea drama more than we're making an actual
I
movie.
know, but it's like, it's perfect though. I'm like,
Have you ever seen The Faculty?
yeah, oh god, I
know,
love it.
Oh.
I've
I know.
watched that movie so many times.
I was also thinking of Stand With Me. Is that what is
Stand by
the-
me.
Stand By Me.
Stand By Me.
Hmm.
Little
Yeah,
girl.
I can't remember the
Josh
characters.
Hartnett with the little
Goonies.
pens.
All right, and the last thing on your character sheet is a place for action hero one-liners. And this is just basically, if in the moment you come up with an idea that, just those perfect zingers, if you say a thing that makes everybody laugh, just jot it down, and you can use that to give someone else a bonus onto their role. So it's just sort of like a free-flowing way to, if you think of something funny, makes everybody laugh, write it down, and we might revisit them at the end of the movie and kind of recap them. And then the last thing on the production sheet is the title. So at the end of the movie, we also will take a moment. Did anyone come up with what they think is a great title for our movie based off of what actually happens? All right. So the last thing we have to do before we can actually get into the game itself is we're going to create a list of common action movie tropes. We're going to start with 5, and this involves rolling on some tables. Each result will give you the option of 2, so you get your choice of those 2. Most of them are probably things you're familiar with, but I do have descriptions of what they mean if we are confused. If we don't end up using one, it gets carried forward into Act 2 if we want to. Like if it's one we like, but maybe it makes more sense for like the third act, we can kind of keep moving it along. But we're going to begin each act with 5. And you can basically invoke a trope to get a +1. So if it is one of those weird times where you're not rolling your best, you don't already have 5 dice, it's an easy way to get an extra die, is to just invoke that trope. So whoever would like to go first, we're going to need 5 total. So each of you will roll, and then one of you will roll twice. I need 2 d12 rolls, please.
All right, I'll go first.
Sure.
That is 4 and 7.
4 and 7. All right, that is... All right, I'm going to have to pull up my list here because off the bat, I don't know what those are either, so I want to make sure that I have it ready.
Exactly something to memorize.
Say again.
Not something that needs to be memorized.
I've been keeping a running journal for the notes.
All right, so we have Impossible Mission Collapse or Dog Pile of Doom. Impossible Mission Collapse is when an elaborate high-risk plan is concocted by the heroes. We hear all the planning, and then it never gets past step 1. So we spend a lot of time coming up with a plan, and then it immediately goes sideways, and all that planning was for nothing. Dog Pile of Doom is when a large number of mooks bring down a hero by jumping on top of them, and then you're physically dragged to the ground.
I would love that dog pile of doom, especially for Wolfgang. That seems like the perfect. Like we've got to have at least one of those scenes where Wolfgang's like, "No, I'm too strong."
Just overcome by the moles.
Yes.
2 bronze running characters that works.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right, who would like to go next?
I got 3 and 5.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
3 and 5.
3 and 5 is Deadly Gas or Gunpoint Banter. Deadly gas is, at some point in the movie, characters will be trapped in a room with a deadly gas. So something either you have to like hold your breath to get through, or some other way you would get out of that. And then gunpoint banter is when you are at odds with someone with weapons and you're just having what seems like a casual conversation.
I think that would be perfect for either you or me. We can't hear you.
I think the gunpoint would fit better than the gas. I think our plot. I don't see the Chunky Factory having a trapped gas room.
Maybe?
It's a gas room, but instead of gas, it's custard.
How evil is your aunt?
Well, I was thinking government intervention. They bomb the. It's kind of like, of course, I'm gonna list off all the movies. Night of the Living Dead 2. At the very end, they drop an atomic bomb on the city.
Or the Food and Drug Administration gets involved. But they're kitted out just like the FBI, so the big guns and helmets. We're the Food and Drug Administration. There's too much sugar in this place.
Excellent. All right, who's next?
So, did we decide on the gas or the gunpoint?
I thought you went gunpoint, but
yeah, gunpoint. I was just
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We just started talking about the gas. I mean, we're going to have a face-off with your aunt at some point, so...
The gunpoint's the best idea.
I rolled a 15, 10 and a 5.
10 and a 5. All right. Number 5 is katanas are just better, or line in the sand. So katanas are just better is at some point during the movie you pick up a weapon that's just better than every other weapon in this particular case. And a line in the sand is that classic thing where you literally will draw a line in the sand and no one will pass over that.
We are up against pirates. Katanas.
I mean, they are just better.
As long as it's not halberds, I'm down for it. We'll go with the katanas.
Excellent. And obviously, it can actually be any weapon. It's just at some point we realized that this weapon is better. I think of Pacific Rim. If anyone's seen that movie, they use missiles and bombs and guns, and they're like, all I got left is this sword, and they kill everything with that sword. Yeah. All right, 2 more. So who hasn't rolled yet?
I have not. 10 and
all right,
12.
Go for it, please.
10 and 12 for 22.
10 and 12.
I will be very happy if we ever get a 7 and 11.
I know, right? I'm like, come on, guys.
See if I can...
All right, so 10 and 12 is drool, hello, or one-dimensional thinking. So drool, hello is, think of in Harry Potter when the giant dog, they don't realize they're in danger until the slobber lands on them. And then they look up into the face of Fluffy and they're like, ah! And then one-dimensional thinking is when you can outwit your opponent because they are not thinking in more than one dimension. So think Star Trek Wrath of Khan, we're like, wait, we can be above them and they don't know where we are.
I think that could come in handy with fighting moles.
I think so.
I actually like both of them.
I know, it's kind of hard. It's like there are different ways that would be great to use either or.
Because definitely with the drool hello, my very first thought was we're in the heart of the mole civilization, and we're like Mecha Mega Mole has got to be around here somewhere, and then like a bit of dirt drops on one of our heads and we look up. Mega Mecha Mole is 40 feet tall. Oh no!
Rather than drool, some oil comes out of their
yeah.
Trope as breathing.
Joint.
Suddenly the bad guy's breathing down your neck.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do the drool hello then. That could be really fun.
All right, and I think we just need one more. So anyone else who would like to roll again, or you can do 2 people roll 1, whatever works for you.
I rolled 1 and 9.
1 and 9. 1 and 9 is 1 at a time, or death course. So 1 at a time is the classic. There's a whole bunch of bad guys, but they line up and fight you 1 at a time so that you can easily defeat them. And death course is some sort of clearly just dangerous obstacle. Like we have to get from point A to point B, and there's guns, explosions, and bombs all along the way.
Oh, both those sound so much fun.
that could come up to play in the factory.
Yeah.
There's
Really
probably
all
like an
over the
assembly
place.
line going through all the
Yeah.
machines.
Yeah. Because we can't just go in the front door.
Oh, of course not. All right. So again, so at any time, if you're building a dice pool and you don't have enough dice, or if you just want to, you can obviously invoke these. But they're designed so if you need an extra die, you can. You just describe your scene, including that trope. When we go into Act 2, we can bring forward any we didn't use because it seems like we really want that drool hello to be in Act 3, so we can just carry it all the way through if we want. However many less than 5 we have, we will re-roll, so there'll be a chance for there to be more of these. All right, I think that's everything we need for setup. Does anyone have any questions? And also, anyone in the audience has questions, I'll be happy to answer those, and then we can take a quick break.
I'm 100% good.
Really quick, what was the name of the last trope we got?
It was, I think, was it Death Course?
Yeah.
Death
The one where-
Course.
Death Course.
Cool.
Got that written down.
All right, I think we're good.
This is interesting. It's going to be interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah. All right.
I hope so.
Sorry about that, Michael. I couldn't hear you there at the moment.
I hope so. So I hope we all have a good time.
All right. Well, did you you said you wanted to go ahead and take a break, or
Yeah, if you don't mind, I think
Yeah.
it'd be a good time for it.
we'll go ahead and put on our 10-minute timer here. We will be back here in 10 minutes to get into the action. We'll see y'all very soon.
Excellent.
And we are back. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for showing up for Seriously Let's Play. I am not the GM today. It's Michael, and we are about to kick it off with Action 12 Cinema. So I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I have changed the microphone headset, so hopefully we will no longer have that issue. My apologies for taking so long to figure it out. So we've done all the prep work. So we know our characters, we know where our movie starts, we know kind of where it's going to go. Our Act 1 problem is unstable ground. And we've kind of already defined that a little bit. Essentially, there's going to be like these mole people that are digging up, causing holes, maybe entire buildings are going into sinkholes. But our movie is actually going to start with a cold open. So each of you will get a chance to sort of describe your character. Imagine you're sitting at a movie theater. This is the first time we get to see your character. And this is how some of these background elements come into play. So we get to see maybe your daily routine. You're getting up, you're going for a morning jog, and then you're driving into work. And it's just something about your character that tells us a little bit about them. Maybe they have a diary open and they're writing about someone they secretly have a crush on, or anything that you want. Basically, and this doesn't involve any dice rolls. It does not have to actually go into Act 1. I think it makes sense for each of our characters to maybe making their way towards the convenience store, since we already know that's where the Act 1's going to start, but you don't have to. But each of you will get a chance to just basically day in the life, morning routine, however you see fit, to introduce your character to the audience. Who would like to go first?
I'll go if y'all don't.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right. So, scene is of the classic White House. The exterior is the wooden slats on the that build it up, and the camera goes into the window, and Wolfgang is waking up. And his room is, of course, the classic teens messy room, junk all over the floor. And he's getting ready for the day, but at some point he's walking over the wall and he sees there's a poster of the old, from this era, Dallas Cowboy coach of what was his name, Tom Landry. And he stares at it and it's actually ripped in half, and there's like part of a phrase at the bottom of it, some kind of like inspirational quote that's ripped in half as well. And he stares at it for a moment. It's near his mirror, and he's getting ready. And at some point, he's just like, kind of this, turns around, turns his back on it, kind of looking dejected, but at the same time, a serious look on his face. And as he walks for the door of his bedroom, he reaches out, and on the end of his bed, you see at one side there's the football jersey, and on the other side is the blue jean jacket. And rather than reaching for the jersey, he grabs the jacket, throws it on, and keeps on going out the door. Runs down the staircase. His parents, of course, are like, "Hey, we have breakfast ready." He doesn't say anything to them. Straight out the door, past everything. And I would say that would be my character's kind of introduction.
All right. I love that. All right. Who would like to go next?
So I'll start next. Mike is waking up in a dorm room, but not waking up as they lift their head from the desk, paper sticking to their face as they wake up. Piles of books next to them, and moving the glasses they should have last night and rubbing their eyes. Then they catch a glance at the clock on the wall, make a big sigh, grab their coat, grab their car keys, and you see that time skip a little to their car in the school parking lot, and time skip to them in their car and pulling up in front of the White House.
Oh, excellent. All right. Who would like to go
We
next?
made plans.
I'll take it next. You find Mira waking. The only way you can tell that she's waking up is that her body sort of convulses as she's sitting in the front seat of a Trans Am, lit cigarette having died out many hours ago. She's sitting in a parking lot, and as the camera kind of pans around, you see there's no keys in the ignition or anything. But she takes her big sunglasses off and kind of rubs her eyes as well. 6 a.m. I gotta be somewhere. Puts the keys in the ignition, and drives off. Some kind of, like, it's very obvious we didn't have the money to get a copyrighted song, so it's sort of like, don't unstop. You've gotta believe forever. There's like tinny guitars in the background. And as she pulls up to a house, if you're all right with this, Monica, it's Tawny's house, and she like honks a couple of times.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect segue, because as you see, you're in Tawny's bedroom. She's laying on her stomach on her bed, writing in her journal, and just, you know, really conflicted, kind of, I have these feelings for my friend, I don't know what to do. And then you hear that horn honk, and she kind of startles, freaks out, throws her diary like in her dresser drawer, shuts it, grabs her bag and her jacket, and just, you see her just bolting down the stairs, and grabs a pack of those chunkies for breakfast on her way out the door.
Perfect. I love that. All right, so now we move into officially Act 1. And the way the game works essentially is whenever you roll the dice, and each player will get one turn, at least one turn, I should say. You're going to roll your dice pool, and any successes reduce the obstacle. Once it's to 0, you have solved it. We basically have ended the act. So our first obstacle is unstable ground. And this can be, again, portrayed in many different ways. So just feel free to kind of make it make sense to you. But we're going to start with the convenience store. I mean, it's probably like a get and get or get and gone. I mean, it could literally be a 7-Eleven. I don't know if we could, maybe it's like an 8 and 12 or something. I don't know. Something that's just enough off brand so we don't get sued for that. The Trans Am is pulling up at the same time. I don't know, whatever car it was. So everyone's essentially getting to the location at the same time. And I would say there's probably like a poster in the window that says, tonight, guest lecturer, you know, Gerald Tannenbaum, are the mole people real, or something that the camera doesn't linger on, but you definitely pan by it. Probably saw some on the street posts as the cars were driving by so that no one misses what's going on with the movie. But if essentially one of you will take the first scene, you can just, again, continue what you were doing, narrating as we meet the other characters, but at some point, we're going to at least get the beginnings of like a rumbling. Maybe some things are falling off the shelves, and that's when we'll actually start to roll die. Because it's a GM-less game, you have full narrative control to do whatever you want, except for 3 things. There's 3 rules to the game. You cannot take away another player's agency. So if you want to use another character, another player in your scene, you have to make sure they are okay with it. So like you couldn't say, you know, your character's going to get hit on the head by something falling, and then I come in and rescue them. You can ask if the other player's okay with that happening. Sure, as long as they're on board, great. But you just can't assume that responsibility to take away that character's agency. Can't violate established fiction. But we've already established now that it's like 6 a.m. in the morning. We shouldn't jump to a night scene unless we want to frame that as just like a production issue. Maybe we ran out of daylight, because it happens in movies all the time where it's daylight in the night. That's fine. But if someone establishes like we have to get there by 1 or X happens, you just can't say it's 2 o'clock and we forget that. You know, again, it's sort of like yes-anding and improv. We need to make sure we're building on the scenes. We're not negating someone else's. Third, and this is the one where the game gets weird and sometimes it's hard to understand, you can't give yourself a success you don't earn from the dice roll. Because you can narrate whatever you want, but at some point you're going to roll your dice, and that's going to determine if we actually make progress in the scene. So our first obstacle in Act 1 is unstable ground. So you can describe how you react to that. Maybe you dodge out of the way, the stuff that's falling. You know, you're driving the car and you're dodging the holes that are forming in the road. That's all totally cool. But you can't just say, "I have solved it," and then the dice are meaningless. At some point, we're going to roll the dice. The dice will tell us when we've actually solved it. Solving it could be you just outrun it. Like you don't actually stop the unstable ground. Probably makes sense for this story that we just survive it. We avoid any catastrophic deadliness to our characters by driving, running, hiding, whatever the case may be. And again, I'm here to kind of help fill things in. I know none of you read the books. You just know what I've told you. That's why I'm here. But who has an idea for how they'd like to start the scene, knowing that at some point in this opening narration, the unstable ground has to come into play?
I'll go first.
Go for it, please.
All right. Monica, as we established earlier, do you mind if Tawny is in the car?
Oh, no. I mean, Tawny's running outside to hop in your car. You're fine.
Okay. Then, as soon as she gets in, Mira just sort of reflexively offers her a Borman. It looks like Marlboro, but it's called Borman on the side. A Borman cigarette.
It's got like
completely wordlessly.
a yak instead of a camel for the logo.
Yes. Oh my god.
Yeah. And just like this, like before the car door is even closed, Mira's just scream and off. As Mira hands you the cigarette, she says, "You sleep all right?"
Yeah, Tawny would just kind of go ahead and throw the pack of the chunkies on the dash as kind of like the you picked me up, I've always got breakfast kind of exchange. But just kind of like, oh yeah, slept fine. Like, you know how when you're that, you've got that nervous kind of twitch to you and you're like, just act cool, just you're fine, just be cool, and yeah, hand trembles a little bit like lighting the cigarette.
As we're making our way there, Mira explains that you need gas, and that's why we're heading to the 8:12s before we, head to school. But as well, takes the sunshades down, looks in the rear view, and says, "You're looking nice today, Tawny. You do something with your hair?"
And Tawny would definitely just be like playing with her hair and looking out the window like, no, just trying to like dissuade. Oh, and then just immediately out of instinct, let me just change. If I change the radio station, then the situation changes. So you would start to hear the sound of those when you're using the actual dial radio of that sound changing as the car is driving down the road.
Yeah. And there's probably also like an advertisement again for this lecturer that you go by it so fast we just hear just enough to know that tonight this person's in town, but then you skip on to like an actual music station.
And then I think I'll push it back over to the other two when we actually. So it's not right now that we start encountering the roles to survive the unstable ground. This is all.
So it would start now, but again, it can start very smallly or subtly. So it could just be like as you're driving, like a pothole starts to open up, so you just have to swerve your car a little bit. Like that can be the start of it. It doesn't have to be full catastrophic collapse. But at some point during your turn, you have to roll some dice, and that's going to tell us a couple things. One, that we've made progress. So we take that 12, which is how many points it starts with, and we reduced it. If you roll really badly, it can actually get worse. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you made it worse, but it's going to get worse. Or you get nothing, and that triggers a very special thing. So because it's a dice pool system, if you roll it, just all the numbers balance each other out, and ultimately it's a net neutral. You get to do a villain cutscene where we actually get a little insight into what the bad guys are doing. So you never have nothing to do on your scene. If you roll just blanks, you then get to tell us what the bad guys are up to and how their plan is evolving in the story. So if you want to go ahead, we'll build your dice pool now. Because I'm trying to keep saying, if you don't mind, let's just say that there's like a sinkhole starts to open on the road. I think that makes perfect sense. So you always start with 1d12, and you're going to add in or not based off of which attribute you think makes sense here. So for as far as driving or maybe noticing that there's a sinkhole about to open, what do you think makes sense out of your 4 stats? Brain, Brawn, Charm, or Moxie?
I would say it makes the most sense for brains, but I'm kind of thinking of using Moxie as a sort of like there are big sinkholes coming all around us, and like as the camera's following behind and kind of down, we see the sinkholes are like just barely coming at the end of the car, and this +1 from the Moxie would be to show luck. And
that's perfect. Like, you may not even realize that you're dodging. That's very much a Moxie type of roll. It's just it's happening behind you and you're not even realizing it, but it still isn't hurting you. That's a perfect use of Moxie there. So what is your Moxie score?
1.
So then now you have 2 dice in your pool. You can use a skill, and again, it's still fine if it's not really directly related. It's up to you. So if you have a driving type of skill, you can add that in. And then if there's a relationship you want to use, you build your dice pool that way. But if you want to just roll 2, that works also.
Okay. I do want to use the relationship between Tawny and me. Again, without really realizing it, I'll be like, "Hey, I left my bag in the back seat under the seat. Would you mind getting it?" And you're like moving around in the back is tilting the car a little bit. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. So you like accidentally bump into you and not even realize that you then swerved around the pothole that just opened up.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Or even into a pothole.
Pop a tire on the way to get gas.
All right. So I think that makes sense to roll for 3. I think, again, for the first roll of the game, it makes perfect sense. So you're going to roll 3d12. 1s are setbacks. Those are bad. They count as -1. 8s, 9s, 10s, and 11s count as successes. 1 success. And then 12s count as 2 successes, and you get to do some special stuff with any 12s. And then you're looking for the net total. So 1s will counteract 8s, 9s, 10s, or 11s. 2 1s would counteract a 12. So just roll your dice and basically tell me if you get what number you get, negative, neutral, or positive.
Okay, so that is 9, 9, and 7.
All right, so that is 2 successes. So our opening act of 12 complication points is now down to 10. So we are closer to getting through this scene, and you can basically kind of finish your narration, and then you would hand off to anyone else that you want. So essentially, that's kind of the way the turns work: is you narrate, storytell as long as you want. You then roll a die, and then you do just a little bit of sort of like a tail end of, as we continue driving, maybe you get to the gas station, and then you hand off to someone else. And it can be anyone who's not gone yet. It doesn't necessarily have to be the person in the car, though that does make sense, narratively to continue. It's up to you.
Okay, then I think the way I'd like to finish this out, this scene is we get up to the gas pump, completely unaware of all of the terror we just missed, and as we park, I'd look at Tawny and say, "All right, we gotta get some snacks for the party tonight." And I get out of the car, and as soon as my foot hits the ground, I trip forward, like just eating face on the asphalt. And as I stand up, I'm like, "What? Ah, dang, potholes? Really need to get the city out here." And as I take that last puff of the cigarette, as I'm pulling the cigarette away, the camera sees Drew and Wolfgang's car pull up into one of the open places. If that's all right with you, Tommy.
Yeah, I think that is a great segue. I'm like, "Ooh, that's smart."
All right, so who would like to go next?
So I'm thinking as we head for a joint scene. So as we pull up the door, we pull into a parking spot because we've stopped for breakfast. As the door opens, because Drew's the type who would be listening to talk radio. You hear whatever was cut off from their their advertisement. So getting out of the vehicle.
You're cutting out a little bit on audio there a second. Sorry.
So it's not just me. Okay.
I'm right next to the mic.
I don't think it was the mic. I think it's like maybe internet because you were like, roboting a little bit.
Strange. I'm hardlined in and everything. So as I say, as they're getting out, you hear the less of the radio, and then it cuts off as they're getting out. Do you have a suggestion for the next?
I kind of have an idea of where I would see things finishing up to some extent, but I would imagine that my character is going to want to go inside. If anything, just to grab a few things off the shelf. Sees, Tad behind the counter and kind of ducks quickly down the first aisle, hoping that he didn't see him. And starts just grabbing a few things. Of course, we gotta get ourselves the cakes.
Yep, definitely.
And soda, Big Red, C80s. And probably grab like a car magazine, like Hot Rods or something, as I go past. And I imagine that maybe just to build on the scene of just how it's building with all these potholes, like exterior scene of the gas station. All of us are doing our thing, and there's two security guards at a parking lot across the street from the gas station, watching, talking, and all of a sudden, like, one of them is dragged under the car by his feet into a sinkhole, and the other one turns to look at what's going on, and of course, camera sees the mole flying across the screen in front of him, and he falls off screen.
The blur.
It's this absolute blur. Not enough to make out an idea of what the monster is yet.
And this is clearly like a stuffed ball. It's it's like literally like a I can't think of the word with that. It's like,
real bad movie prop. Like
yes.
Yeah.
It's like a Stretch Armstrong that's been spray painted brownish.
See, I was thinking the ROUSs,
Exactly.
And but then it zooms back in on the scene. I know that at some point the entire building is going to start to rumble.
All right, and again, that can be now, or it can still be a little bit later, however you see. But at some point, you're going to roll, so you just have to find some way to how your roll's tying in.
See,
I think just as you reach for the snack cake, because those are always very wobbly racks. Stuff. That's when things start falling off of it. And that's just the start, and then it expands.
Tad at that point probably sees my character and is like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like,
does someone want to be Tad? We could take a moment, because the game moves between storytelling and role playing whenever you see fit. So if someone wants to do a quick role play, someone grab Tad and we can talk a little bit.
I'm more than happy to be Tad.
All right.
Oh, it's you.
Whatever, man. It wasn't me. It's like everything's shaking around here.
Yeah. Maybe. And Tad looks off to the side and says, "Lie," and it gets quiet. It comes back in. Yeah, I'm sure everything feels shaky to someone like you.
Oh.
You couldn't even catch that pass. Not even sure what he's talking about.
Still writing poetry?
Maybe. Who wants to know?
Whatever. And My character is going to reach over. I mean, even as things are shaking intermittently, is this like it's probably just an earthquake, and grabs, he daringly grabs a keg near the back of the store, near near the ice bag container, and starts walking towards the front door.
Hey, man, you didn't even pay for any of the rest of your stuff.
I'll pay. And probably as the door opens, he opens the door to carry it out. He looks across the street, and that's when the car lot across the street that had the security guards all of a sudden just sinks into a giant hole.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we probably hear like car alarms starting to go off too, beep beep in the background.
Zoom in on my character's face and everything else. What the
You
hell?
gotta drop the keg.
All right. So I need, at that point, I'm going to say, I guess, the building that we're in also starts to shake, and it starts to lean and tilt.
Okay.
And in the moment, it looks like Tad is about to fall over and go down with the building, possibly. So I reach back in that bleeding heart moment and grab him to try and pull him out.
Right. And that's a perfect place to roll your die, because we know what you're trying to do. The dice will tell us if it actually works or not.
All right, so
you start with 1.
All right.
And what attribute do you think makes sense here?
So I'm going to say brawn.
Makes sense. You can use a skill if you think it makes sense.
I'm going to grab him and throw him out. So can I use throwing?
Sure.
And then also, Tad is a relationship.
All right. So if you add all those numbers, if it's more than 5, 5 is normally the max, unless you want to also use your Achilles heel.
Well, is the Achilles heel technically the bleeding heart?
Yeah.
That's why I took it as my negative trait thing.
Okay, so it's up to you. I mean, you can use it like, I think it makes sense in the scene, but if you want to invoke it for your role, that's your choice. You get to use it up to 3 times during the game.
I'll save it on this one. I'm not that big bleeding heart for this.
I think it makes sense. We're still very early into the game. And most people are going to roll between 4 and 5 every time, so the math is in your favor still.
All right, so I've got 5d12 going then.
I love rolling 5d12. It's awesome.
All right, so I rolled. Wow, guys, I rolled a 10, an 11, an 11, and an 8, and a 9.
Wow.
All right,
Wow.
So that was a huge success. So that takes us, we were at 10 points, now we're down to 5. So we're actually over halfway through the first act. So as far as the next 2 people who are going, we can really start to escalate how bad things are getting. Because, normally it takes between 3 and 5 rolls to end a particular act. So both of you should probably get to go, but it probably won't take much longer than that. So don't be afraid to really start to amp up what's happening. But you are absolutely successful. So you can kind of finish off your scene by narrating how that looks to you with your great success.
Awesome. Well, I as the building starts to tilt back, the everything's falling into it. I do drop the keg and I grab him. Kind of reaching in. The counter is right there near the register. I reach in, I grab him, and I pull him out, yank him out, throw him onto the ground, and the building falls in. And I look down over my shoulder after I throw him, and I see a swarm in the sinkhole, kind of spiraling of the moles.
Ooh, so are we still just seeing like the stuffed or the stuffed animal version, or is this like an actual like documentary, just like a single mole going through a little hill? We see the same one like 12 times.
I would think that it's more like a whole bunch of furry pillows that is under sand, and we're just seeing people using ropes to drag it through the sand. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, so we got 5 points left. The math is usually like 3 or 4 successes is pretty good. So you actually had sort of a above average success. So more than likely, both of you will get to go at least once. But again, the dice may say otherwise. So who has an idea for the next part of the scene?
So I'm thinking Drew was waiting by the their car the whole time, and didn't see the guards because they weren't looking the right way, but they definitely saw the giant sinkhole
Yes.
in the convenience store. So I think this would be about time they jump back into their car, get it started, and start pulling out and looking for Wolfgang.
Right. Do we want to do the classic thing where your car won't start right away and then you're
Oh.
like, cranking
Oh yeah, because this is a rust bucket. This is a total rust bucket. So there's
Right,
definitely
so-
going to be the
Go ahead. Sorry.
definitely going to be the turning the key multiple times, trying to get it started. Stress.
Okay, and we can roll right there for you just to get your car started. Absolutely works. If you want to carry it a little bit more forward and like try to get Tad or Wolfgang into the car, that works as well. So just kind of where do you think it makes sense to end your scene and actually roll the dice?
Yeah, I think it's going to basically finally. You'll see the zoom in inside the car, and then you see the car whip out, things like that, and the whip roll down the window and get in.
Love it. All right, if you want to go ahead, you can roll right there, and we'll see how this goes.
So that would probably. I'm thinking that would be kind of brains of the situation because they're. This is something you got to get away from fast.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 2, and how do the rest of the dice work?
So you start with 1, you add in your attribute, which is 0, 1, or 2. You add in a skill if you want. If you want to add a skill right now, like driving, if you don't already have that, you could use that one. And then you can leverage a relationship and you add all those up. If it's 5, you're done. If it's more than 5, you stop at 5 unless you want to use your Achilles heel.
Yeah, they've got driving. They were definitely ones to take the defensive driving course, because just the type.
Perfect.
That'd be just a +1 if it's not my +2, right?
All right.
So I'll roll 4 dice. 7, 2 8s, and a 12.
7, 2, 8, and 12.
2 8s and 12.
Okay.
So 7, 8, 8, 12.
All right, perfect. So that is 4 successes because the 12 counts as 2 successes. So right away, we are down to 1 point left before this act is over. However, the 12s are very special. So not only do they count as 2 successes always, that just absolutely happens. You have 2 options that you can do with that 12 as itself. You can either roll another die right now, add it to your result. So you could potentially get another success, and then we will end the act. We'll still let Monica go, and she can just basically narrate what happens here. Or you can hold on to that D12, and you can use it later in someone else's turn as a bonus. So they may only roll 5, but you could actually roll a 6th for them. I call it the heroic high 5, where you're doing something to help them in that scene. But you could still roll a 1, which would actually hurt them in the scene, but we can get to that. So would you like to roll another die now or save it for potentially later? It can be anywhere in the game. Literally till the end of the game, you have a bonus die to use on someone's turn.
Only need 1 more, but I'll save it for later.
All right, I think, again, for the flow of the game, that makes perfect sense. So just set it to the side, make a note. Somehow you know you have a D12 to use on anyone else's turn for the rest of the game. And you may end up with more of these as we roll more 12s. All right, so Monica, you're up. There's only 1 success needed, so more than likely you will be able to end the act here, but the dice may have different ideas. We'll have to wait and see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what I had kind of been thinking while all of this is going on is Mira and Tawny had been standing at the gas pumps. And as you start to see like the scene, everything's happening concurrently. So Wolfgang has been in the store. You see him walking out with Tad out of the convenience store as you're seeing Drew furiously trying to start their car, as you're seeing that guard go down in the sinkhole. That sinkhole is starting to spread. So like the 2 cars, Drew's parked in front of that store, but Mira's car is right at the pumps. That sinkhole is starting to spread across the street. And Tawny sees that because Mira isn't paying attention, that like they're putting the gas in the car. Tawny, if it's okay with Mira, would grab Mira, pull them away from the pumps in that awkward up close, like when you're like when you've saved someone but you're right up in their face and you're like, oh my goodness. But the gas pump is still in the car as the car starts to go down into the sinkhole that is starting to consume the gas station. As that, like, realizing we can't get in the car, but they know, because I'm assuming all of our characters know each other, right?
I think they're all high school students.
Yeah, I was like, I think we're all friends.
Yeah.
We're in
know
that.
each other at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if it's okay, then Mira and Tawny would have to be running to try to get into the other car, like, oh my gosh, because their ride is gone. And as the group leaves that gas station parking lot, you have a huge explosion that comes up from that gas that had been pouring out. And you just kind of hear this weird shrieking noise, not knowing what it is. It just sounds like people, it's the mold burning.
All right, it's clearly an insert shot of a little miniature gas station that is actually like a lighter going off.
100%. Like you see that pool of gasoline that someone has created, like that diorama that you make in school and lights it on fire and then like flicks a Hot Wheel as the car across the screen.
All right, so basically what
the lighter at the very bottom of the screen, like.
Yeah, you can see the Zippo lid, like accidentally the corner of it flick in front of the camera.
So what we're trying to do at the end of your scene is to get everyone into the same car, and you're driving away as the explosion happens behind you. Perfect.
Yeah, bringing that group of characters together. And so it's also if Tad wants to, if we want Tad to be with us as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect. That's a great way to open the act as well. We've got our heroes together. They're unified. The world is literally falling apart in front of them. So let's hope the dice agree with us. So build your dice pool. You start with 1. You adjust based off of your attribute. Add any skills that you want. Relationship if you want. If you get more than 5, you stop there unless you want to use your Achilles heel.
Yeah. So it would. I don't know if what does a personal crisis do? Does that add? Is that a plus or a minus?
Because it's a minus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you would. So let's say you built 5. You could purposely pull 1 away and say, I'm only going to roll 4 here. And as long as you get any successes at all total, so you get 1 9 and nothing else, then you've worked towards eliminating your personal crisis.
Okay.
So there should be like 3 little check boxes. You just check 1 of them. For everyone else, if we get into Act 2 and you haven't had a chance yet, you can still do it 3 times. So you don't get penalized if we just get through it really fast. But it's supposed to be 1 per act. But if it just happens that way, you can do 2 in Act 2 if you get the opportunity.
Yeah, because I would definitely go ahead and use that moxie, trying to go ahead and, as Tawny is trying to save Mira, pull them away from danger. So that's 3. But I don't know. I think I would just need the 3 then.
Whenever you're comfortable, and then if you want to pull 1 out to make it 2, that's it's your choice.
Yeah, because the problem is, let's get a little dicey, guys. Let's get a little dicey. Let's go for the 2.
Need to get that as a tattoo. Let's get a little dicey.
Right? As we're leaving the convenience store, I happen to roll a 7 and an 11.
7 and an 11. Oh.
7 and an 11.
All right. That is absolutely, literally perfect. All right. So that's all you needed. The scene is over. So you can basically narrate how you see this happening. The car's driving as more and more sinkholes open up, whatever you feel comfortable. Once you're done with that, we go into sort of what I call interstitial scenes. It's kind of like the cold open. Everybody gets a turn if they want to, and we can kind of progress the story forward. So it might be later the same night, couple days later, it could be seconds later, however we make it make sense, as we then move into Act 2. And remember, our Act 2 obstacles are pirates and collect all the pieces. Now, we have not established that we're anywhere near the ocean, but we could have an insert shot of just a pirate ship, and then we cut back to our land-based action. Again, that's the type of movie this is. However you would like to finish up this scene.
Yeah, I think you would see kind of everyone in the car, and everyone's kind of freaking out as they're driving and just, I don't know what's going on. As you're starting to see like the lights going off behind them as tower poles and buildings are being dragged down into this expanding sinkhole. But then as suddenly it started, it stops.
Perfect. That absolutely works for me. So then we would go to the interstitial scenes. So again, everyone gets one turn if they want it. If you don't have anything to add or just don't have an idea, you don't have to do one. Often in movies, this is the time where our characters would hole up, and either on the radio or on the TV, you would get some exposition dumps where we it shows like all across the country or the county, the sinkholes, that kind of stuff. So our characters get information that they probably wouldn't have. So also, I don't think we used any of the tropes. So we can move them all forward, or we can roll new ones. If we want to change or add a relationship, you can do that now. We don't have to. We can just move into Act 2. So I'll ask, does anybody want to do any of that trope rolling or change a relationship, or do we just want to move into Act 2? Yes, sir. Sorry.
I definitely think this would be the perfect time for the death course.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, Monica, if you don't mind, I do still love that idea of as soon as it started, it stops. But I like the idea that as we're heading out of town, a bunch of, high school kids, crazy out of their minds, scared, we go through the death course, and if we survive, that's like when all of the rumbling and the sinkholes seem to stop, and we're like, what's going on? What?
I mean, it could be other cars that did fall into the sinkholes, so you're having to twist and turn around, maybe even go off-road for a minute.
Yeah.
There's no spike of dirt.
Buildings
Oh yeah,
falling
there's
over.
that. Yeah. The dirt springing up from the ground.
Is this a point where we do any rolling?
No, so this is just complete narration. You can just describe however you want. So again, we want to make sure that our characters kind of fully understand the problem. We don't have to, but it makes sense to get an exposition dump somewhere. This could also be a quiet scene between two of our characters, maybe that are coming to terms with how they feel about one another or one towards the other. So basically, after each act, there's a non-rolling scene where we can just reset any relationships, move things forward, and then we move officially into Act 2, and that's where we start rolling dice again.
Then I think there's two things I'd like to do. One thing with Mira and one thing with Tad, and that'll move me into something. Move us into
Just
something.
go ahead and start then, and then if someone else wants to jump in, otherwise you can just do both of those.
Okay. Mira's like panting and sweating. I imagine Tawny, Mira, and Tad are in the back seat. One of those classic bench back seats. And she's just sort of like, she's lost her cigarette, so she's trying to light up another one, and Tawny, if you'd be okay with that. I really like the idea that Tawny would be like, can I help you light your cigarette? Because she's just like
Yeah, Tawny like taking that kind of be brave moment and put like the hand on your shoulder and like steadies your hand and lights the cigarette so that way the flame actually stays there. Kind of lock eyes and just be like, and then that didn't happen. Like, had a moment, don't acknowledge it.
Yeah. If this was truly 80s, this whole B plot wouldn't even be happening.
Right?
But then as Tad, I like the idea that Tad just sort of Tad taps Wolfgang's back, hoping that he has the answer, but he says it loud enough that Drew would be able to hear this. And Tad's like, what's going on, man? Yo, that was some crazy stuff back there.
Maybe even Tad interrupts that moment. But like as you're looking at each other, Tad like leans through between the two of you to talk.
Yes!
That's what breaks the moment.
Yes. Guys, what's going on?
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
I think Drew would be just it's like some weird anomaly in the seismic activity of the area. Start rattling off science. Which of course just blanks the face of everyone else in the car probably. Or mostly.
Yeah, I like to think as after you say that, Tad looks to Wolfgang and says, "What?"
Don't look at me, man. I just came for the beer. Damn it, I forgot the beer.
You have beer?
And I also kind of imagined, now somebody had mentioned the pirates, and that they're going to be in a scene coming up.
Yep. So part of our Act 2 obstacle is dealing with pirates, whatever that means. It could literally be pirates, or it could be, I think we talked about maybe like hackers. They pirated technology. We haven't defined it yet. All we know is it has something to do with pirates, however we want to define it when that time comes.
Road pirates?
Could be road pirates.
See, I was imagining, so we're driving down the road, and of course the camera sees the car driving off, all of us talking and bantering about what all's going on. But the camera stays still, and we see a large truck 4x4, the black exterior, like the car that the one guy had at the end of that tried to race McFly in Back to the Futures. That big truck with the big wheels, 4x4 off the ground, red pinstriping. But it kind of like pans over to them, and they're sitting at this, parallel to us. And as we drove past them, and we see this group of people who now see us, guy in the passenger seat kind of like taps the guy on the chest and points in our direction, and the car heads off after us.
Perfect. And we can just start right there with the next act, or if either anyone else who hasn't gone yet want to add to this interstitial scene, you have full freedom to do that, or otherwise we can move on.
I think that's a perfect segue into Act 2.
Yeah.
All right. So in Act 2, we have two problems, and they can happen simultaneously, or they can sort of start to overlap each other, or they can be completely separate. Just kind of whatever makes sense. Seems like we're going to start with the pirates first. And we could even do part of the pirates. Maybe we get away from them. Then we start on the other one. We start putting the pieces together, and then we bring the pirates back at the end of the act for the, they jump back on the road behind us once again. It's whatever we think makes the most sense for our movie, but we won't end this act until we have reduced each problem to 0.
Okay.
Right, so who would like to go first for a scene that involves rolling against the pirate? So the person driving the car makes sense to me, but it doesn't have to be.
If anyone has a better idea, I'm just kind of thrown by others being chased on this, so besides just driving, I'm not sure what to narrate.
I mean, that's all you need. Unless you just want to do something, you can just describe yourself, outrunning them, outmaneuvering them, whatever you think would be interesting and fun, go for it.
Basically, so we're driving along, and suddenly now there is a big truck that's like literally riding the back of the car. This is not this is a station wagon. It doesn't really do high speeds.
It could be outmaneuvering them. Maybe, again, I'm just throwing out ideas. Maybe there's someone else in the car that you think would be better at driving, and you want to switch while you're driving. Like that could be part of your role. Is that now that Wolfgang's driving, that's helpful. Again, it literally can be whatever you want. And that's one thing I didn't cover. The dice decide if something makes sense. So if you want to try to punch a vampire, or you want to challenge a vampire to a dance-off, both of those have the exact same chance of being successful if the dice say they are. So it doesn't matter if your idea makes logical sense or not. If the dice says it worked, it works. So feel free to come up with any wild idea that you want.
Maybe they do bump into us, which causes that tailgate to flop open.
Okay.
And that's something somebody's going to have to crawl back there and try to get it closed because it's slowing us down.
That works. Maybe someone's going to try to jump from the truck into your car if the door is still open back there.
Yeah, and I'm seriously picturing those old station wagons where the door, the trunk opened like that.
Mm-hmm.
I always call that
which
the
are very
Dexter family
inconvenient to
station
get
wagon.
into. But yeah, so we've literally got a wing coming off the side of our car right now.
Perfect. So yeah, let's just roll that right there if you're ready. So you start with 1. What skill do you think is driving? What attribute you think is driving? Any skill, and then any relationship. Roll it. See what happens.
I think partial of this would be a relationship with Wolfgang because we have a trust situation going on where if I tell you that we need to get that closed, you would.
Yeah, that perfect.
Yeah. Like, we're not going to get very far with that closed. So I got relationship, my driving, the one, and I think this is still bright. So we got 5. See what I can do. 2 10s, an 11, 3, and a 1.
All right. So the 1 counts as a setback, so it subtracts one of your other successes. So you would have had 3 successes, but you only have 2. Still, that's 2. So you've reduced the pirates from 12 to 10. Now, on your character sheet, one thing that you might have seen. On all of the places where you have your attributes, your skills, there's a little box that says S and it says B. So S is for stress, B is for broken. So you have to take one of the things that you used just now. So the attribute you chose, the skill you chose, or the relationship you chose, and click off the S for stressed. As you've used that relationship or you've used that thing, it's very high excitement and doesn't change anything unless you stress it again. Then it becomes broken. At that point, you cannot use it again until you get healed. And that can happen if someone drops a one-liner that heals you, or in between acts, or if someone takes a turn to do that for you. Because it can be like emotional healing, just put a hand on your shoulder, doesn't actually have to involve first aid. So that's the only way that a lot of times you may not roll your best combination is because things have become stressed. But you pick which of the things that you built to choose to stress here. But otherwise, it still works. That's the only thing the 1 does in this case, because it doesn't mean you don't succeed. So you did succeed. You can end your turn narrating your partial success, because we still haven't finished the pirates, and then we'll just hand it off to someone else.
I'm thinking straining the relationship, because I'm probably yelling, calling names or something, get there faster.
That makes perfect sense to me.
And then I guess it's switching over to getting that door closed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense for Wolfgang to take over here, but again, it is anyone who hasn't gone yet can go, but whatever makes the most sense to the table.
Because Wolfgang's going to be climbing between the 2 of you.
Oh, no. This is the 80s.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, I see that, you tell me you got to close the door. My character's like, okay, and he looks over his shoulder, sees all the people in the way. So he decides to go out the window and up on top of the car. And he's starting to slide a little bit.
I was hoping that's where your brain was going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So he's sliding down the top of the car a little, which is dangerous.
There's luggage racks.
He's like, God, why'd she tell me to do this? And
and it's clearly not you. It's a stunt person.
Oh, yeah.
Like a really bad wig.
Yeah. This is a station wagon. It's got the luggage rack.
And so reaches down and is trying to close that door. And, he's just like, this is the worst tailgating I've ever been to.
So that would be a healing. So you can unstress your relationship, because that made me laugh. So that's how those work.
Awesome. And yeah, so I will, I'm fighting to close the door. Obviously, Drew, I think that our relationship is being used in that a little bit. And Braun again, how's that sound?
Works for me, as long as it works. Normally I wouldn't be here, so as long as you don't have a problem with it, you're only justifying to yourself.
You're trying to get a door to shut against high winds, so yeah.
From on top of the car.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's still swerving the whole time, and that other truck's getting closer and then back and closer.
Your foot is like locked into the luggage rack.
So I rolled a 9 and a 7. Those were my successes on this one. So I'm hanging on for dear life, and yeah, I'm up on top of the car now.
So you did manage a success, so we've moved closer to dealing with the pirates. So you can describe that you did actually close the door, or it can still be open, but the way the game works, we are still closer to being to the end. So you just sort of finish up the narration however you want, and then we'll turn it over to someone who hasn't gone yet.
At this point, the wind, everything else, just hanging on, probably holding on to the rack, trying not to get tossed off the car. So I'll leave that as an opportunity for somebody else to try and drag me in if they want, or do something else.
I kind of like the idea that Tad has also like scrambled into the back, and is like in this way that makes spatially it makes no sense, but they built like a little set to look like the inside of the back of the thing, and they're just like, ha, and then a bad cut away, and the bad guy's like, ooh, falls off the back.
So good point to bring it out. At any time you can actually have Tad do something. Like if you say, Tad, you've got to do that, you would still roll, but you'd probably use like a charm skill because you're asking someone else to do something. Same thing later, maybe there's a sheriff and you're like, Sheriff, shoot that mole person. So in the narrative scene, the sheriff has actually taken the action, but you would still roll as the character because you told them to do that. So that's how that would work. So I'm not saying you have to do that here, but just because it seemed like it made sense to explain that there. Please carry on.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I think I will roll for Tad helping to like punch the pirates off the back. So would I roll off of my stats?
So you basically would build your pool, but this is more like a social thing, like you're trying to convince them to do it or ask them to. So pretty much charm, maybe brains if you think you're tricking them into do it because they're maybe easily manipulated. I think you chose one of your skills was persuasion, so that definitely would fit here. Or even lying if you think it's a really dumb idea, but you still want them to do it. So you're rolling off your stats, but in the story of the narrative we're seeing, Chad has actively taken the action.
Okay, then I guess the way that would look is as soon as Wolfgang starts clambering up to the top, Mira would look at Tad kind of expectingly, look back, and like kind of smack him on the arm and be like, Tad, come on, the back door, man. We need that taken care of right now. You know, you're the biggest guy here. I'm sure they couldn't handle you. Tad's like, okay, all right, you got it. It was secretly just so Mira could be closer to Tawny. So I'm gonna go Charm 2, Persuasion 2. Yeah, Charm 2, Persuasion 2. Not too much else. Okay, so that is 4, 9, 7, and 3.
So that would be one success.
Yes.
All right, so we're now down to 8. So we're making our way through there. The pirates are still a problem, but you can narrate that. Chad's able to be successful at it. The scene can still continue, however you think it makes sense. But we are reducing our pirate issue. We're almost halfway.
Okay. Along with the punching and stuff, you see Tad like pick a guy up by the back of his shirt and his belt and just wah. One of them out in like a continuous shot that's shot from like 3 different perspectives of the guy falling out, and you get 3 separate scenes of the guy falling out the back. And when it cuts back to Mira, she's sort of like, we need to help these guys get a little bit of an edge. You got any plans? And then I'll throw it to Tawny.
So what I had kind of been thinking with what is going on with the pirates and just everything, and Tawny starting to get very anxious, and you see her in the backseat getting very anxious. Since Wolfgang has gone up on the roof of the car, at this point, Tawny would reach forward through that space in between the middle seats to adjust the radio. And you wind up like hearing that noise again. But then you hear that announcement on the radio about the talk, about the mole man talk that night. But as she is reaching and starting to come back, accidentally knocks into Drew, who's driving, and the car is forced to swerve into the vehicle that has the pirates. So that would potentially have the ability for them to hit like you could have the vehicles doing that back and forth where it creates that enough like along, because you're still on the roof as Wolfgang, right? You have not made it back into the vehicle.
Yeah, I'm still up there.
Yeah. So it's like an epic shot of just like holding on to those handrails so it looks like you're flying.
Slamming against each other, the rear mirrors being broken off. I start yelling something about my turrets are gonna kill me.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Like the cars separate, come back together, separate, come back together. But then kind of recognizing, that hearing things start clicking in Tawny's head, that the talk tonight, as they're driving down the road, but you see that auditorium in town, you see a sign for it that says like 3 miles, and just kind of shouting to Mira, like we need, or not to Mira, Jesus, to Drew, like we need to stop, we need to figure out what's going on, and introducing the idea of, we need to go somewhere, stop, talk, and putting up the option to, like, we need to calm down. Like, this is too much.
And that works perfectly. So you're actually going to roll against the collecting all the pieces obstacle, because that, like, you're basically introducing the idea that we need to figure out what's going on. So even though we're in the middle of a car chase, you can still roll for that. Now, if you want to make this about the pirates, it's your choice. But I think that makes sense to roll and reduce that one a little. Just the idea that we need to do something to figure this out perfectly works in my mind.
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
All right.
I don't know how I would put this together though.
So again, you start with 1.
Yeah, start with the 1.
If you want to say that the radio thing was just luck, that probably would be Moxie.
Mm-hmm.
You could be Charm, because again, you're also trying to get people to, like, we got to figure this out. That could also be Charm.
Yeah, well, and brains, because like I've got the brains there, so that would be 4 if I use all 4 of those, because that would be Moxie's 2, brains is 1.
But you only use 1 of your attributes.
Oh,
so you start with
I'm sorry.
1. Yeah, you choose which attribute you think makes the most sense, but again, it's totally your call. Then you could use a skill if you think it's applicable, and you could create a new one if you don't have one yet for your +1, and you can reuse the relationship. So you basically add up each of those categories for a total number of dice you're rolling.
So I think I would actually create a new skill, which is just like reasoning, because she has full-headed, won't change her mind, and climbing. So it would be the start with 1, brains 1, or I'm sorry, charm 1, reasoning 1, so that's 3 dice.
Perfect.
So let's see how these go. I got a 1, a 5, and a 6.
All right.
They
so
did give
that
us a reroll. Are we allowing to reroll?
you could reroll, just so you could reroll not the 1s and hope that you get enough successes to either make that a net neutral or a positive result. You could use both or 2 issues of your heroic to reroll all of them. You can just take the 1, so I can tell you what happens when that happens, or any of the 3. What do you think makes the most sense here?
I'm interested in knowing what a fail is.
Okay.
Same.
Great. So what happens on a failure?
The pirates pull you into their car.
Oh no! And then we have to rescue Tawny.
So
No. Pull Wolfgang in.
Wolfgang.
Oh.
So normally when you fail, you would add 4 points back to a complication. So if we've already started reducing it, you just raise it back up. If that would take it above 12, you actually create a new complication. So since you're technically rolling on the collect all the pieces, it's not been touched yet, that's what we would do. So we can either roll randomly, or again, I think it makes sense, just have someone jump on the roof and they're actually fist fighting Wolfgang. They grab Wolfgang, he's now in that car. So you can describe it however you want, but the new one comes in at 6 points. So it's not another full 12. So we have now added a 3rd complication for Act 2. This one starts at 6 points. I do think narratively it makes more sense to have them jump on the car, deal with Wolfgang, or we can just roll and then see what we come up that way. So technically, you're the active player, Monica, so you get to choose what the new complication is. Obviously, you can ask the table for input, but ultimately, you're the decider.
Yeah, I think we need table input because I love the idea of we now have a rescue mission.
Yeah, I also 1,000% down for that.
So I think Wolfgang's the character in
be-
peril.
I'm
Yeah,
100% for it. Sorry, Danielle, you were about to say something?
I'm just saying that the fist fight has to be the start of it, though.
Oh yeah. And then this could even like impact your relationship with Tad when Tad comes and help is like really the one to save you.
I'm down for it. I had a crazy idea, but if this is where we want to go, let's go for
Well, let's at least
What's the
hear it.
crazy idea?
it. My crazy idea was, again, I'm a movies guy and I love pulling in stuff. If you've ever seen Critters, there's a scene where there's all the ball of all the critters. They all form a giant ball and start rolling along, and we could have them join the chase too. Except it's not the critters; it's obviously the moles.
The moles.
Yeah, I've had the idea that this has been going on in sort of like a California kind of deserty kind of thing. So I really like the idea that one of those big, weird kind of needle mountains, you know, the kind I'm talking about, like maybe a spring of moles comes out of it and forms a ball in that B-movie logic sort of way, and it rolls down into us.
Y'all's call though, because I'm cool with both.
It's sort of like a giant anthill, and then the moles come out of it like ants, but it's a big
Yeah.
ball.
Yeah.
The prop guy had fun. We had.
Yeah.
We had to find he made the prop before it was actually written into the movie. We had to.
100%. They reused it from another movie that got scrapped. They already had it.
I like that because then we can kind of do a double up where instead of Wolfgang getting taken by the pirates, he gets taken by the molemen. The ball hits the sides of our cars. The molemen fall onto the sides of our cars, and they're like, human. Rah!
That is we had the dog pile.
Yeah, the dog pile of doom.
Oh yeah.
Dog pile of Moldum, yeah.
Perfect.
All right, so Monica, so just kind of narrate how you see that happening, and then who hasn't gone yet this turn.
I think
I've already gone.
at least
That's
once.
fun.
Okay, then we would just start back over, and it makes sense probably for Wolfgang to kick off, but again, it doesn't have to. So first start with kind of narrating how you see this playing out, and then we'll just decide who wants to go next.
Yeah, so as you're seeing the two vehicles locked together, as they start to reach up to grab Wolfgang to pull him into their vehicle, you see this you just hear a loud thud as and the car lurches forward, which almost throws Wolfgang just off the cars completely. But as the thud noise subsides, you start to hear scratching and all of these little titters as both vehicles then are swarmed with these moles that are coming out of their round, like that last one just bursts like a wave on a dam, and the moles just up and just huge cloud of moles.
Moles everywhere.
Swarming, and just as you see like Wolfgang being covered, you don't even see the roof of the vehicle anymore as these moles are just everywhere.
It's two
love it.
Hot Wheels
The
that
windshield
are
wipers
shot
are going to
through.
push the moles off.
Yeah.
But I love the idea that the scene is two Hot Wheels that are being shot through one of the little spinner things into like this wall or this big mound of like brown cotton balls.
Or Raisinets, because Raisinets would kind of be around the
God.
right size compared to a Hot Wheel.
Yes.
They're brown like a mole.
What am I, a scientist? I don't know any better.
I don't know.
All right, so that will be the end of basically the first round. So now again, any of the four of you can go. Again, I think it makes sense for Wolfgang to start, but it doesn't have to be Wolfgang's character. So who would like to go first?
I don't mind going first.
I mean, I think it makes the most sense, so let's just go with it.
The fight's literally on you right now.
Yep.
All right, so we have essentially three tasks total. We have putting the thing together, whatever that is. We have the 12, we have the mole people now, and then we also have the pirates.
Yep.
I think that I want to get away from the moles that are climbing onto the vehicle, and I want to. My character stands up and looks around, and the 4x4 truck, the windows of that truck are on level with where I'm standing. It's that tall, much taller than the station wagon. So I'm going to leap into their car and start fighting them. So I'll do a leaping punch as I go into the car.
All right. So you choose: are you rolling against the pirates, or are you rolling against the mole people? Either way works. But which one are you trying to reduce here? Is it getting away from the moles, or is it fighting the pirates off?
I think I want to start with the pirates, to be honest.
Okay.
So, Braun fighting, and I think that's going to be it at this point. So it's going to be 4 dice.
Okay.
And I got a 8 and a 12.
All right. So that is 3 successes by itself. You have the 12, so you can just roll another d12 right now and see what happens, or you can hold that for your heroic high five later and add it into someone else's turn.
We got 3 things going. I'm going to go ahead and roll it.
All right, so just take another die, roll it, see what happens.
There we go. I got a 10 on that one.
Perfect. All right, so that is 4 more successes towards the pirate. That reduces it to 4, so it's very close to ending that one. So again, kind of narrate how you see this playing out. And again, it can be as back and forth as long. Think of like a Fast and the Furious type fight. So it, even though this is the tail end of your turn, it can be as long and involved as you want, and then you'll hand it off to someone else.
All right. Well, I jumped through the window. Window's obviously open. We didn't want to take those risks. But I land in there, and I'm just, arms and legs are flailing. I'm kicking a guy with my knee into his cheek. I'm punching the driver. The car is now kind of fishtailing back and forth a little bit. The moles are climbing all over everything. And that's probably where I would leave that, in my portion right there.
So you're in the pirate truck. There are still moles everywhere, and we're still trying to figure out how to actually solve the problem. Perfect. All right, so who would like to take up from there?
I think I will actually take it up from there because I have a crazy idea.
I love those.
Those are the best kind.
Mira looks at Tawny, opens her mouth to say something, thinks better of it, and then opens her door, and kind of hangs out the side, trying to keep herself on the outside. And she leans in and yells at Drew, "Get us in front of the car! I've got a crazy idea!" And as we get in front of the car, this is where the roll comes in. I am going to jump off our car, roll across the hood of their vehicle, and then try to knife throw a switchblade I've got in my jacket right into the guy's head.
Okay.
Of course, we cut away at the last second, so you never see.
I also like the idea that even though you're hanging out of a car window as you say this, they've ADR'd that line, so it's very clearly in a booth. I have an idea, even though you're hanging on the back of a car as it's happening.
Yeah. Like, if you look real closely, the lip movements don't match the words. Okay, so this is actually where I left my ones mostly open. So I'm going to use Moxie, knife throwing, and actually, because of this situation, I'm gonna use one of my heroic traits.
Okay. So the heroic trait is a reroll. You can wait
Okay.
to see how your the Achilles heel is where you get the bonus dice.
Oh, right. Then actually, yes, because this definitely sounds like a high risk operation. I'll use my Achilles heel of Thief with a Heart of Gold.
All right. So you get 2 extra dice, which takes you up to 7. Any ones that you roll count as double ones, so there'll be more setbacks to successes.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so that is I've been learning German. So I keep forgetting what numbers are in English. Okay, that's 2, 10, 11, and 4.
So that would be 2 successes, but if you used your Achilles heel, you should roll 2 more dice than you would have originally put in your dice pool, up to 7.
Right. My original dice pool was only 2 dice.
Oh, okay. My apologies. Okay. So you got 2 successes, so that takes the pirates down to 2 left before that one is completely solved. So overall, you have sort of a successful roll here, but we haven't solved the pirates just quite yet.
Then, as the guy starts swerving a little bit, I imagine he swerves away at first, and then back in towards our car. And I'll just yell out, "Look out on the side!" as we get close to crashing.
All right. So who would like to go next? So more than likely, if you go against the pirates, you'll be able to end that obstacle. Now, the way it works narratively, I think we currently have 2 characters that are either in or on the pirates' truck. So if you want to deal with the pirates, they would be solved, but you can keep them in the narration until it makes sense to get our characters back. So even though we're not rolling against them anymore, they don't physically disappear unless you want them to. So it's totally fine to address the pirates next, even though we have 2 characters on the truck. It will make as much sense as anything else does in this game. So who would like to go next?
I have a crazy idea of how to get them back into our car.
Those are those kind.
To get both of them would be, Mira, or since Mira, you're on the hood of the other car.
Yes, I'm on the hood of the other car, basically holding on to the side, because I imagine this truck being one of those that's got like the square kind of cab windows.
Yeah, in my head, it's like an old Bronco, because that's just easier for my brain to equate it to.
Oh, okay.
And then, because I'm just like old boxy.
Yeah.
Wolfgang, are you inside their vehicle or are you on the roof?
He dove into the window.
Okay.
He's
I'm inside
their
under the
car.
window. Sorry.
Okay. Because what I had in my head that could be a possibility would be that Tawny would tell Drew, like, you need to pull, which makes no sense, but you need to pull Mira into the car. I'll hold the wheel. And Tad needs to pull Wolfgang into the car through the window. So you frantically see the windows like rolling down and the car is swerving back and forth. And then as they're pulling them in, both Mira and Wolfgang into the vehicle, Tawny actually goes ahead and veers the wheel all the way to the left, forcing the vehicle that the pirates are in to crash into a building on the side and explode as our 2 other party members are dragged back into the vehicle, which would then thoroughly end those current moles and the pirates.
Okay. All right, well, let's roll it and see what happens.
Yeah, so that would be starting, reasoning, and we'll go Moxie on that. We'll definitely go for the daring. So then that's going to be 4, It is 2 3s, an 8, and a 10.
All right, so that would be 2 successes. That would end the that would end the pirate situation. That would get them to 0. Just because you brought it up, if you have enough successes that you would have some that carry over, you could use the carryover towards a separate obstacle. So currently, the mole people or moles still have 6 points. If you were to have gotten 4 successes there, you could have finished pirates, and then the other 2 would have went towards the moles. So if you don't want to re-roll, then what will happen is the pirates are done, but the moles are still completely active.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
There's
So
definitely
yeah. So
still
you
some on the
can.
card.
Yep. So the only thing we have left now is the collecting the pieces and the moles. The moles are at 6, and again, we can do these separately. They can start to overlap however we would like to. So I believe that Drew hasn't gone yet this turn.
Nope. So can we leave a logic and just the auditorium that we needed to go to happens when coming up, and that's where when you veered us off, that happens to be the off ramp we go down.
Perfect. Yeah, you see it
Yeah.
in the distance right there. That's perfect.
The car is not doing very well.
Yeah, no. The car is not doing very well at all.
All things. That exit, the auditorium is like the big parking lot at the end of the off ramp. So you see us veering into things. The car itself, like falling apart as we come to a stop. And I'm thinking that we need to have a mole fight.
Okay.
Yes!
So, these are my strengths. For fight.
You're still cutting out a whole lot.
Yeah. I'm not. I think I get what you're saying, but I missed a little bit of it.
Saying none of these are my strengths. That's the challenge here.
Well, this is a great time to try to bring in a trope. I believe Wolfgang has a heroic die. I think one of you does, so you could roll that for them if you would like. It's your choice.
I have the heroic die.
Okay. I think someone else did too, though. I thought. Maybe I'm wrong.
I
else roll
used
the
mine
twelve?
up.
He used his.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
You could use your
Okay.
Achilles heel to get 2 extra die and hope it works out.
I'm thinking I do have a secret fighting ability. Something that wouldn't be very normal. I'm just trying to think what I can do.
But you're the one that's always prepared. Maybe you were in
Yeah.
the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts. Maybe you have like a Krav Maga badge or something. You have some of this ridiculous.
Yeah, I was thinking martial arts, just something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
Literally,
dragged martial
I
arts
opened
as
the
a
door
kid.
in the strategic way that it actually knocks one of the moles, sends one of the moles flying away, and then literally get into a fist fight with another one.
I was like you're doing like pressure point strikes against a mole creature.
I also really like the idea of you being able to like MacGyver things. Like the car rolls to a stop, everything falls off and it falls apart, and the next time we see you, you're walking out with like some kind of ray gun that genuinely makes no sense how you have it, but it looks like it's made out of spare car parts. What do you think of that?
Seems very fitting for such a silly movie.
Yes.
Yeah. It's actually
So-
just like a Toys R Us like toy light up ray gun that they just spray painted with silver.
So MacGyver is a new ability I have.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're going to. This is the katanas are better than.
Oh, perfect.
Men. So basically. I get out, make up a weapon, and start fighting things off.
Yeah.
So that would be. So that would give me probably brains to create that MacGyver. That extra for the katanas, and then the one. So that's 5 dice. Where did that move here from? 7 and a 10, and all the rest were fails.
All right.
Not fails.
Right. All right. So 8s and higher are successes, so that's 1 success. So yeah. So you do take the mole to a 5. So you were successful. You've reduced it, but only by 1. How many dice did you roll?
5.
This might be a good time for a heroic trait reroll because you don't have any 1s. You can keep the success, so you don't have to reroll the 10, and you just reroll the other 4. Though you could roll 1s this time and actually make it worse. So it's up to you, but I think the math would be in your favor there.
I'm re-rolling those 4.
Okay.
And I got a 12.
All right, so that counts as 2 successes, and then you can add another dice right now, or you can add that as another heroic high 5 you can use later.
I think we need to try to take these down. Let me try rolling one more die.
All right, roll it again.
And that's an 11.
All right.
Oh, yay.
If you had rolled a 12, it would have kept going. So,
Yeah.
Theoretically, you could solve one problem on one die roll. Hasn't yet to work out that way, but theoretically it's possible. All right, so you made a lot of progress on the mole people fight. It's down to 2. There's only 2 points left. So you definitely, if you want to describe yourself just like taking out a bunch of mole people, however you see that happening, and then whoever goes next, again, you can go towards either, or I think we start the round over, so anyone could go again. We've only got 2 points left on the mole people, and then we still have all 12 for the collect the pieces.
I literally basically made some sort of projectile weapon and just like start picking them off. You're literally, it's practically looking like the carnival game, bing, bing, bing. Because, I mean, we practically have hand puppets going on here anyway, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like I see the stuffed moles that are just falling over. Ding, ding, ding. Awesome. All right, so I think that's everybody. Again, because we're on the table, so anyone can go next. If you want to go again as Drew, maybe you do finish in this fight just on your next turn, or whoever has an idea, just up to you.
Somebody else has to fight the rest of the moles.
I have an idea. Unless you wanted to go, John.
I definitely have an idea of something I could do. I am going to. I think what I'm going to do is one of the puppet moles jumps on me, and I'm wrestling with it, rolling around and everything, and I notice that there's something on the mole, like on its cranium, on its head, like little something, like a little module or something, and I'm gonna reach over and I'm gonna rip it off, and I think it might be controlling the mole. So my goal is this will actually be a part that we need to build towards. But I'm actually using my fighting and brawn to get the piece.
Perfect. And this is a great scenario because if you roll extra, you can actually also reduce the collecting all the pieces part. And thematically, narratively, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that. All right. Oh, yeah, there we go. 2 9s and a 12. So that is a 4
So
total.
you've already solved that and 2 towards the other, and you got the D12 to do what you want to with.
All right. So and I can hold on to that for an extra dice later. Let's do that.
But again, it's on someone else's turn.
Yeah.
You use it. Yep.
Let's do that. That'll be perfect.
All right. So go ahead and again, you can. I know you kind of set up what you were going to do, but if you want to narrate any extra flourishes, but when you're done, the mole people problem is solved, and all we have left is to collect all the pieces.
The mole screeches after I pull the thing off, and it has kind of a dumbfounded look on its face, and it starts to run off, and probably several of the others chase after it.
Excellent. All right. So basically here, again, the way the game works, we could like cut forward in time a little bit. Maybe we're all in the auditorium and our Dr. Gerald is talking, or we can pick it up just immediately from here with Wolfgang saying, I just ripped this off the mole's head. Whatever makes the most sense to you, how we can proceed. So again, whoever hasn't gone yet, somebody can go. It's just your choice as the active player, how you think it makes the most sense.
I guess I'll go next. I had an idea. Well, I tried to figure out what my idea originally was. Monica, would you like to go?
I've already gone in this unless if we've restarted.
I think we did.
We did restart.
No, you can go.
Okay. Then yeah, we would just be unaccosted, sort of dead running to the place, to the convention center. We all flash our IDs, our like student IDs to get in for free. And even though this was filmed outside of a big, like, it looked like a football stadium, we only ever see one room, and it's like the hilariously too small lecture room of where the doctor is. And what is it? We would hear, trying to figure out how to turn this into something we roll. Because my idea was we get in, Dr. Tannenbaum starts telling us about what he thinks of the situation. And maybe one of us has some sort of revelation.
But again, I'm always here just to make things more complicated, so feel free to ignore me. But I think it kind of makes sense that, like, originally this was supposed to be just like a lecture, but now that things have happened, this might be like an emergency shelter. Like, this is where people have come. So he's there, the lecturer, and he starts, people are now believing the theories, and you happen to have a piece of technology that might be the piece that he would need to then be like, oh, with this, I only need this, and this, which you could set up the collecting the pieces, or maybe the piece that you have is part of that as well. So if you want to break the narrative a little bit, that this isn't a lecture anymore, this is like an emergency meeting where, the sheriff's here, or National Guard has been called in, but you happen to have information no one else does because of what happened just a moment ago.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great idea. So as Dr. Tannenbaum is explaining, if only we had these sorts of items, I think I like the idea that one of them is like, if only we had some kind of cellular device, something where we could hook up to this brand new technology known as cell phone. But only 1 in a billion people have a cell phone, and today, 1988. Whoa. And hearing that, I look around, and I imagine by now some of our other like high school / college buddies are there. And so sort of like Nog from Deep Space Nine, I'm just trading and trading and trading until I finally get a cell phone. Like, I'll trade you your gum for this thing for this thing. Eventually it ends, hopefully, with a cell phone.
It has to end with actually Tad having the cell phone.
Yes, somehow Tad has the cell phone.
Tad, we established Tad was from a rich family.
That's true. But he just won't give it up because he's like, hey, I know we've been through a bunch of stuff right now, but like, we're not friends or anything.
Or it could be they're just not smart enough, like they're not paying attention to what, they're just ignoring it. So they're on their cell phone, like talking to their mom or dad, and it's like, give me that, sort of.
Yeah, okay. That is the way I'm gonna go with that. So that's gonna be charm, persuasion, and that's about as best as I can do.
Okay.
So let me just. Okay. Okay, that is 2, 2, 10, and 12.
That is 3 successes, and then you have the 12 that you can re-roll right now, or you can hold on to it for a later roll on someone else's turn.
How much is left of collecting the pieces?
7.
Okay, so that's 3. I'll take that reroll right now.
Okay.
Just because that seems like a healthy decision. Okay, that is 11.
All right, so now we're halfway through that as well. So this definitely has propelled us. We're halfway through the collecting pieces. So again, you can finish off the narration with a flourish, and then whoever hasn't gone yet can pick it up.
Okay. Then whew, brain. So as Mira rips the cell phone from Tad's hands and gives it to Dr. Tannenbaum, she'd kind of look around at the rest of the group and be like, does anybody else have anything? That's the end of for me.
Do you think at this point we need to start introducing the transformations? We now have tons of people, and so various people will start turning into things.
Oh, was that a thing we had?
So biological contamination was something we had held for the third act, but we could certainly introduce it here. Someone starts showing symptoms of turning into like mole-like. So maybe as we're putting together this device, it triggers someone's transformation. So it's just like it's setting it up, but we're not really dealing with it yet. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was thinking since we have a large group of people together in this kind of like safety shelter, people have snacks, and then you're starting to see moles paying more attention to people. Like maybe a mole pops up because someone's eating a chunky cake. So that's still putting pieces together. You're now seeing the mole and the chunky together.
Yes.
Okay. So again, I apologize. I'm having trouble. Who has not gone yet this cycle, this turn?
I think the two of us haven't, right? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So either one of you can go. And again, it's one of the weird things about the way the game works. You could just be sitting there enjoying your snacks and like noticing things that are happening, and you can still roll, and the scene is still going to move forward. Can't think of the word I meant there. Or just like listening into as the scientists are doing it. I think as a hero, I want you to be active, but if it just doesn't make sense at the moment, you still get to roll as the active player, and you can just narrate that you're listening to them do things. If that if you can't think of any other way that you're actually helping, you're still going to roll when it's your turn.
I think after everything that happened, Drew is kind of just collapsed because this is not.
You've been through a lot. It's been a day.
Yeah, my car's destroyed. Everything's going on, but they are the smarter characters, so I think they would start putting two and two together and see the observations, and they are the biochem TA, so I think some of that might start clicking.
Yeah, you might just correct one little thing, like, oh, you missed the decimal, like you're looking over someone's shoulder. It could be as little as that.
Yeah, the scientists are talking, and I'm like, actually, it would be this isome, not that one, whatever it is. So that would be brains. I think that could be a link to my NPC, the NPC relationship. And I'm trying to think. I think that's pretty much it. So it'd just be 4 then.
Okay.
And that is 2 successes.
All right. So that takes it from a 6 to a 4. So we're about 3/4 of the way through, or I think 2/3. I'm not good at math. So you can kind of finish that with a flourish, and then whoever's next can pick it up. I do think at some point we probably need a map of like the county to show that the Twinkie factory, the Chunky factory, like there's clearly some sort of movement to it, so we know to move our characters there at the end, but that can come at any time.
That could definitely be something that my character would have on them, a map of the town. And as we're talking, they start venting, everyone starts putting two together that it's related to the snack cakes. And I just whip out this map and just like lay it out on the floor.
Perfect.
And then we have Tawny.
I don't know what to add if we've now introduced the map with putting that out and the mole with the chunky factory.
How familiar are you? You're familiar with the Chunky Factory. You're familiar with the city, right?
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah, so I guess that actually makes a great point. Thank you for remembering that. Sorry, my brain is fried. Yeah, Tawny would kind of stand up and take the lead and be like, I broke in there. I know my way around the factory. So kind of trying to put together a plan, but because it's a factory, you do need access. So we can't just have a swarm of people. Like we need someone who has an in to like the factory, which would
So this
work.
is like a military operation, but they're still going to need you there.
Well, Mira's aunt is the one who works at the factory. So kind of you see the group huddled together talking this plan through, and we need you to talk to your aunt. We need to get in there. But while we use you as a distraction, we can sneak around and like climb up to the back of like a grain silo and use that as a way to slide into the facility.
Right. Yeah, so just your knowledge of how to maybe get in would be of help here.
Yeah, so explaining the schematics, and you have that like super tense music in the background.
Like Ocean's 11 planning, almost montagey type music.
Exactly. So that would actually be the starting brains and then 2 for climbing. So that's actually 4 dice.
All right. All you need is 4 successes.
All I need. Come on. Yeah. I've not been rolling well. That's 2 2s, a 7, and a 5.
Right, so that's nothing. So again, you could use a heroic trade and reroll, or because you got absolutely nothing, that would trigger our villainous cutscene, and you could give us a short scene about what the mole people are up to, or maybe Mecha Mole Man, just something to give us an idea of maybe filling in some exposition for the audience who still, we don't know what's going on. So maybe this is a good exposition dump on that side. It's up to you.
Yeah, I think it would be really... Yeah, you could even see that you see a person who's kind of enjoying, not having any idea what's going on, just enjoying their chunky cake. And you see them transform into a mole as part of that segue into Act 3. Or see them convulsing. You just see a human eat one, get sick, convulse, and then it's like end screen. I don't know.
Okay. I mean, you got maybe we're in like their lair, and like there's a bunch of mole people in like scientist coats, and they're observing, writing things on clipboards as a human takes a bite, and they're just watching it. There's like a big dial that has human and mole, and just it's slowly moving that way.
That is fantastic.
And we see like the clawed hand come out of the shadows of Mega Mecha Mole, be like, good. Ba, ba, ba.
Exactly what I pictured.
All right, so who would like to go next? We still have 4 points to get out of Act 2.
I'll happily go ahead and do something with this, and that is while the scientists, our scientists, are trying to figure this out, and the professor and I guess is Dr. Tannenbaum there as well. So
yes.
They're working on their little device or whatever to combat all this, and they aren't paying attention, and there's we're in a stadium, and one of those giant stadium lights, one of those big runners of lights are overhead with the and the cables had been previously not on, and they start to break, and it crushed, it's going to crash down on them. And of course Wolfgang sees this and starts running and jumps to try and knock them out of the way. to save,
And
save
of
the
course
people.
you have to yell out your name, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, which it's like Wolfgang. They're like, what? Why is he yelling his name?
What's yelling his name?
Because I want you to remember me if I die.
Oh, yes.
All right, so that's going to be my 2 with brains. I'm going to go ahead and use one of my points to buy tackle. I've had skills previously that I hadn't, purchased, so I'll do tackle, so that'll be a +1 this time. And I think, the entire, maybe the entire city, the entire world, who knows, are at risk. And so this is a bleeding heart cause.
Oh, okay.
So I'll go ahead and roll my 5 dice. But doing my one thing, that does turn it into the risk, raises.
Yeah, if you use your Achilles heel for the 2 extra dice, ones count as double 1. So if you do roll ones, it's really bad.
Let's do it. All right. I have a 11 and a 9. Oh, and an 8. 8s do count.
Yep. So that would take it down to 1. You'd only have 1 left if you want to try, because you can not re-roll what was successful. So you could click off a heroic trait and re-roll the rest of them, or you could save it for one other person who mathematically should be able to end it, whatever you feel best.
I want to be popular. I'll use my heroic trait. Now, I want people to. I just yelled my name. This has to be important.
Wolfgang.
Hey, 11. Yeah, there was the slow run, and after I tackle them, of course, there's the one guy that starts clapping in the background. And it all starts to build up.
Slow clap.
Slow, yeah. Love it. All right, so that would end Act 2. So we have another series of interstitial scenes where we can really set up the moving into Act 3, and it can be a day later, 10 minutes later, whatever we want to do. We can change relationships or add in relationships. If we want to carry forward any tropes that we haven't used, we can re-roll to fill those in. So we're at 5:15. It's going to be really hard for us to get through third act because we start with 3 obstacles, even though 2 of them are half. So do we want to maybe set up like a cliffhanger sort of ending here and then go ahead and just kind of end this, or do we want to try to push through to the third act? Because it's going to be kind of hard. It takes about an hour at least to do each act.
Yeah, and we do have a time limit tonight with everything, so it is time limit for 6 o'clock. Everyone, I don't mind ending here. We can write it up as a cliffhanger, but I'll leave that up to the rest of the players too.
Yeah, I'm okay with cliffhanger.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea that there's like one last scene, and then it just abruptly, it doesn't make any sense. It just abruptly cuts to a black screen that says, "For part 2, call this number or mail X amount of money to this address with a return address," like old shareware. But
There's some bad things out there that actually have the end ?
Question, yeah.
Yeah, dun dun
Like,
dun.
Dun. And then we
It's
get that
like,
chipmunk over the
Yeah.
shoulder.
Or that old acid burnout when the film
Reel.
actually when the reel catches fire.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for playing my silly game that I'm working on. Obviously, thank you to the audience for paying attention. As a playtest, because this isn't a finished product, I would love to hear feedback, especially from those of you that have played. And again, anyone watching, if you have any thoughts, I would love to hear it. Good and bad. I like to say that, positive criticism makes me feel better. Concrete criticism might make the game better. So I'm open to a little bit of both. But yeah, again, John, I'm trying to step on your toes. However you would normally wrap things up.
No, absolutely. My thing is, at the same time, it's always good to, if you just want to ask right now, with the players and everything else. But myself, I will say that I had a blast. I had fun. I love games where I get to do something cinematic. My preference is always cinematic gameplay. So this
Fantastic.
definitely is definitely in my wheelhouse.
As ridiculous as possible.
Yeah, this was an absolute blast. You don't really need anything. Like, you could just have one person tracking the stuff as you go. So you could do it on a road trip. You could do it when you're hanging out in a hotel lobby. Like, I really love the portability of a game like this. This is really neat.
Awesome.
I
Thank you
like
for
that
that.
the roles didn't decide whether so much that you succeeded, that you did this really cool thing, just that. There's more complications.
Hmm.
There's more problems. It's just it's but it's not, oh, I'm going to do this really cool thing. No, you didn't.
Yeah.
That's disappointing.
So, I'm assuming most of you have played D&D at some point, or any of those typical role-playing games. A lot of GMs have this thing now where it's like you roll to kill the monster, and they're like, okay, you tell me what that looks like. And then for that brief moment of time, you get to describe your actions however you want. I took that moment and made it into a game. That was sort of the impetus. And then I used the movies because I love those and D12s. But that's what that is. It's that little moment of I can describe it however I want as the entire game. So again, very overwhelmingly positive praise. I love that. Anything critical, anything could have been better, could have been smooth, just anything at all. I'd love to hear it. And again, also audience, anyone listening, any rough spots, feel free to jump that in chat.
How defined are you going to make those tropes in the book? Because there were a few that you really had to explain for us to understand.
Yep. So there are, I think, 300 tropes included, and I do give, like in the book, it will have those 300 listed. So you have the charts, and then there's like an appendix with all of them. If you also can Google and find them pretty easily that way. And I narrowed it down to 300. There's like thousands of them on the internet, but I picked the 300 I kind of like the best. And then so there will be described in there. If you don't know, you can find it that way.
Did you base a lot of them off like the TV tropes?
So there are some TV tropes. I mean, I literally went to Google and was like action movie tropes, TV tropes, and just sort of like started, because I think I literally started with the list of like 600, and then I just kept, because you use 12 and charts of 12 and how many I needed, and I just sort of took out the ones that were either redundant or I just didn't like as much. So if you have a favorite trope, there's obviously you could put in your own, but the ones that I have are some of the more classic ones. But I guess your mileage may vary on if you've heard of one of before or not.
I really don't. I enjoyed everything, and I thought I had a great time with it and everything else. I would say that there's a part of me that wishes I had done my relationships, all of them up front, because that way I could have pulled them in and had a little bit more guidance on that, which isn't
Okay.
really a big thing. Mainly just because it also kind of reminds me of a little bit of there's a game out there that does something similar, Mistborn from Crafty Games, where
Okay.
every person that is involved in the scene adds bonuses.
Hmm.
And so, it kind of had that feel to it. And I was just like, man, I should have been thinking, I've been like, I can have them show up right now because that's the movie. So
Hmm.
that's literally it for me.
Okay.
Establishing relationships is definitely something I love in games. This is actually, I think the outside of like Fiasco, where you just the person next to you type of relationship, but most of them don't really define as well as this one did. But so I did like that.
Okay, great.
But it was a lot more open. It wasn't like you have to have so many.
Mhm.
With one with this person and one with that person and the one next to you.
And that was kind of the goal, similar to like skills, where I want to leave it open so you can like make them up in the moment, but maybe making that more explicit that you can define as many relationships as you want, if you're as a player would like that, or you can do just two and then add in the others as you want. So it's sort of kind of like how the skills work. If you're someone that wants more defined, there's nothing to stop you from doing that.
And the defining ones for NPCs was actually really nice.
I think the one thing I would say is of course by the end of it my brain was getting kind of fried, so it was getting a little harder to try and figure out, okay, what am I doing? How could I contribute? So I kind of like the idea if there was maybe a like not to throw cards in to this, but maybe like a help, I'm stuck, what should I do mechanic, uh or maybe just even an encouragement of, I don't know what to do, let me ask everybody else, what should I do in this. I think especially like saying that in the text,
Hmm.
hey, that's okay, you're allowed to do that in this game, because a lot of people are going to be like, especially if they're coming from other more rigid games. They're gonna be like, no, that's metagaming. I can't do that. And I know I'm a victim of that mindset, even in a game like this where it's like, seriously, ask everybody all the time.
Right.
You can sort of say it to a player till you're blue in the face, but if it's not written in the book, a lot of people will be like, no, I can't.
Mhm.
One
Basically,
reason.
you can help each other set the scene. You can help each other figure out what they want to do. We end up doing that, but yeah, I can definitely see some players would be unwilling to.
Yeah, that's easy to do. Just make it very explicit. It's always the table's open for discussion, but the active player has the final decision to make.
Absolutely.
But other than
Right.
that, yeah, this was a blast and a half.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And-
I'm so glad you guys had a good time.
And I will say that's oftentimes the fatigue you have from a game like this is the cinematic nature and having to constantly be thinking. So, honestly, that's yeah, I get you.
Yeah, I was right there. I literally was like, I don't know what to do, guys. Like, please help me.
And then I pointed out the whole thing you set up at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's very common in cinematic gameplay. Is that there comes a point where you're like, okay, how do I continue to be creative?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
I'm not a big. I don't actually watch a lot of those car chase movies. So suddenly I'm the driver, and it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. But I love it because there's few things like it out there. So,
Mhm.
Well, if in the future, like at 3:00 in the morning, you set Bolton, like, oh gosh, I should have told Michael this. Throw it at me either on the Discord or you can find me on the Twitters at the RPG Academy. And then again, also please in our Discord chat, drop your name and how you'd like to be referenced. And when I do the book, eventually you'll go in as playtesters. So I'd love to have that for you.
awesome. Well, thank you very much.
yeah,
Well,
this was such a blast, and I want to see our movie. I need someone. Chat
Oh.
all agrees. We need our Puppet Muppet movie made.
Do we have a title? I know we're cutting off before we get to the
Yeah,
third act
Ooh, we
climax,
didn't
but
do a title.
Journey to the Center of the Cake.
man, that era for movies with with names, they were usually like the whatever.
yes.
The stuff, the mist, the fog.
Okay.
Got it. I'm sorry. I got to wax just one moment. But have y'all ever heard of a movie called Exterminators or whatever? The Exterminators.
It sounds familiar, but I'm not.
It was
Sounds
so
familiar.
utterly horrible. And it was a bad action movie, but it had a guy whose lower half of his body was a tank tread. It had a ninja, and it had a soldier, and it had a reporter. Basically, it looks like they got all the pieces from all these other movies nearby and made a movie with it. It's terrible. Look it up. It's great.
Wow.
And I'm
That's
just like, yeah. Anyway.
yeah.
Anyway.
I've seen scenes from this.
Oh yes,
I
it
never
is
knew
that
the
famous.
name.
It's the Exterminators, and I owned it on VHS when I was a kid. So anyway, I'm sorry. Guys,
No.
thank y'all so much for coming out, enjoying our silliness, having a good time, seeing a new game. This will be up this next week on YouTube, on our channel at youtube.com, Rook and Rasp. So you'll be able to find it there. Be sure to also follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube. Also, we have ended, for those, it's been a busy week. We ended our charity last week on Sunday, and we did really well for Red Cross for the Ukraine. It was 150. We went ahead and we had a member of the community who went ahead and matched what was donated. So we actually ended up having 300 going out for the Red Cross Ukraine. And so thank you everyone who subscribed, liked, did the coffees, did bits, and whatever else. We really appreciate it. We're talking about having another charity event coming up. We will let y'all know. Be sure to go follow our Discord to know when that hits. And that's pretty much it. So, guys, get out there. It's Saturday evening. The night is still young. Have a good time. Go play games. Enjoy life a little. And seriously, let's play. Talk to y'all later.